This episode is brought to you by CBS All Access. If you don't already subscribe to CBS All Access, please use our affiliate link by going to talkthroughmedia.com/CBS. Using our affiliate link gives us a little credit, which helps us to keep bringing you great content. U.S. residents only.
Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Star Trek Picard Cast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
And tonight we will be discussing season 1, episode 3 of Star Trek Picard, titled The End is the Beginning. Before we get started, we had our second Patreon call-in show on Monday, and if you want to get into that, of course, that's at patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. And we wanted to give you just a little taste. So here it is. And the Patreon is uncensored, but this will be censored. Okay, so the one thing I haven't said on the podcast yet, his teeth are distracting me.
That thing in the ear has distracted me.
Well, that too.
My wife even said, "What the f*** is that in his ear?"
he's got British teeth.
Yeah.
I can't, every time, like when they had the bed scene there with what's her face, Soji, I just got like, you know, he was opening his mouth a little bit, and I'm thinking, it's like, well, why is that one tooth so far ahead of the other one?
His teeth are very distracting. It's very weird.
Yeah.
And by the way, my husband is British.
Yeah.
It's the Austin Powers teeth.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Teeth don't bother me because I needed braces as a little kid and never got them. So it's that thing in his ear that gets me.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
It's Romulan Bluetooth headset.
Or
it looks like I'm like Austin Powers going, "It's a mole."
Well, it's some kind of like, it's a triangular thing. It's not a like, because remember on the first episode I said it almost looked like a hair, right, like clump of hair. But I got a better look at it. And it's definitely some kind of like triangular thing. Makes me think it might be a communicator or like some Bluetooth thing. I love that idea.
That he never takes out.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the earring that hipster Romulans wear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not used to Romulans with curly hair like this. They always had such straight hair.
The bowl cut again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
or that weird high and tight that the one guy has on the artifact.
Yeah.
They had to make them a little bit more attractive than what they used to be.
But he's got the same. But when they showed a picture of, you know, Harry Treadaway and Ethan Peck from Beardy Spock, it's like you're kind of going, eat beer. Yeah, they're close
until the teeth.
Yeah, until the teeth. Yeah,
Ethan Peck has good teeth.
Ethan Peck, good teeth. Harry Treadaway has treading away teeth. But okay. So yeah, I haven't talked about Harry Treadaway's teeth, but and that was part of our second Patreon call. And Ruthie, you may have noticed wasn't there because we were discussing the comic, which Ruthie hadn't read the comic, so she was out. So it was just some of the Patreon people. You probably recognize LT and James there. Anyway, so that was a lot of fun, and you get access to it if you go to patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. Anything, even $1 a month, will get you access to that. So I just wanted to give you that right on the top this episode. So before we get started into the end of this beginning, we have some feedback for last week's episode. So I'm going to open hailing frequencies. Okay, so our very first bit of feedback is a voicemail, and we haven't heard from her this season until now. So welcome back, Cyberman. Here it is.
Hello, Brian and Ruthie. This is Cyberman. I've been loving Picard, and I just finished the podcast for Maps and Legends, and really is great to hear you guys again. It's like, we've all come back home. But I think Picard is terrific. Absolutely love it. But I have been totally obsessed with the idea of who blew up Utopia Planitia, who blew up the shipyards. Now, I'm convinced that it's not the Shadbash, because it doesn't make any sense for a group of Romulans to destroy the shipyards before these ships are completed that are going to evacuate a planet, their own planet, to save Romulus. Makes no sense to blow it up. Wait till after the evacuation, then you can blow up the shipyards. So that doesn't make any sense. Now, Section 31 is capable of doing such a thing, especially if they felt that the Romulans could never get past their own duplicitous nature and could never be part of the Federation. If they felt they were a threat, I could see them blowing up the shipyards to prevent the Federation from actually assisting the Romulans. But a third option is that you have Maddox and company. You have Maddox building sentient androids. Now, to someone secretive planning, to someone building sentient androids, F8 and the plastic people are offensive. And actually, they were a little bit offensive. It was a little disturbing to see them used that way. Anyway, I could see them being, Maddox actually being the person who destroyed or blew up Utopia Planitia. That is my theory at the moment, but I haven't given up or haven't closed my mind to other theories because I cannot figure out who. All I can do is eliminate variables. And the only variable I've really eliminated was the Shadbash. I don't think they blew up that shipyards at all. They did not destroy Utopia Planitia. I would be very disappointed if that turns out to be the case. Also, the intelligence officer that blatantly lied to the admiral, who was so crappy to Picard. Oh my gosh, can you be any more harsh to an elderly man? I mean, was that necessary to be so incredibly cruel to him? I just thought that was awful. But anyway, the intelligence officer, I'm assuming she's Vulcan. I'm assuming she's Vulcan because I cannot understand how a Romulan could have advanced so high in the intelligence community at Starfleet Command in such a short period of time. We're talking 14 years. I don't think that's enough time for someone to gain such a lofty position. So she is either a Vulcan working with that lieutenant who hired the Romulan hit squad, or she's Section 31, who would be much more open to working with Romulans. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. That really bothers me. It could be my own prejudice against Romulans. It could be, I just cannot understand how a Romulan could have achieved such a lofty position at Starfleet Command. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. I think she's Vulcan, and I think she's working with the lieutenant, not knowing she's a Romulan, but knowing that she had contacts to hire the hit squad to get Dosh. Anyway, obsession. I'm probably going to mention this again. I'm hoping we find out. I just think it's really interesting. And anyway, great to hear you guys. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, for that, we've got to play. Thank you so much. Of course, you get a Showcase Award.
Great to hear from you.
And good to hear from you again. Obviously, that discussion of who is it and why would the Romulans basically attack us when we're trying to save them, that came up in the cold open. Picard, obviously 14 years ago, and even now still questions it. So, but I don't think it's Section 31. And that's just simply, a lot of that has to do with outside of this particular show. That is the fact that we're getting a Section 31 show. So could be as early as, later this year, or definitely in, this time next year, we'll have Michelle Yeoh in that Section 31 show. So I just don't think that Section 31 is going to end up. Even though I said a lot of things about Section 31 before the season started, I don't think it's going to be Section 31, just because how much Section 31 can you have? You know what I mean? It's too much of a good thing. It just
not necessarily, though. I mean, just because they have their own show doesn't mean they can't show up in other shows. That's what crossovers are for.
Well, yes, but that's they're in a different century right now, but yeah.
Maybe. We don't know exactly. Oh, I guess we do, because Michelle Yeoh is going to be in it.
Or a Red Angel shows up and it's Giorgio at the end. But we'll see.
I don't know. I want to have a really good reason for it to be Romulans if it's Romulans, because I agree with Captain Picard 100%. That just don't make no sense.
It doesn't make sense unless it ties into some of the things that we get this episode. But I say that and I say, Ruthie, hanging by a thread. Me saying it, there's a lot more of that story that needs to be told before I can completely get past, because I agree with Picard. It makes no sense why they would want to destroy a fleet that is being built for them. I mean, do they hate synths that much that they would kill 900 billion of them, of their own kind? I don't think so.
That doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing before I get to the final thing I was going to bring up. I do agree with you, Cyberman. I think that the treatment on Mars or on Utopia Planitia, wherever they were, to F8, it was a little off-putting. There was definitely some racist or whatever, speciest tones to it. They obviously weren't being treated like they were, like equals. So I get that, but then again, I don't think that they were equals.
No,
I don't
they
think
weren't sentient.
No.
Which I could see why someone like Maddox would see that as offensive. However, I don't feel like he's that kind of extremist.
Yeah.
So I don't see him as being responsible for the attack.
I don't either.
I just don't. I mean, that's an extreme tactic.
Yeah.
Response, not I don't think this is right response.
So, but the other part that I will say that I think we have to agree to disagree, but I don't agree. I don't think she's a Vulcan, and I have more on that later, but I think she's probably been a Romulan hiding in plain sight longer than this whole synth tragedy. I would think she's probably been there at least since the events of Nemesis. She's probably been there at least 20 years, if not longer. Because they like Laris even mentioned that last episode about the Tal Shiar being in place in many different governments, including the Federation. So I'm thinking, is their person. So
yeah, she's probably a Romulan posing as a Vulcan.
I have to 100% agree with you, and I have some evidence to that later. So something I saw in this episode that I went, aha.
And I have a counterpoint to your evidence. So
okay, great. So all right. So our next bit of feedback is from Bob via the feedback form. That's a nice little note he wrote in. He said, found your podcast a couple of weeks before Picard debuted. I'm really enjoying both. This was a packed episode, but unfortunately I have an overpacked weekend. So just one observation. I love the camera work when Picard walked into Starfleet HQ and the lens flare looked like tears. Interesting.
Yeah, I did not notice that.
Yeah. Looking forward to the podcast. Yeah, when we got this, we had already recorded, so didn't make last week's episode. But all right, so next we've got some feedback from Todd from Ohio. Ruthie, you want to start with that?
All right. Todd from Ohio says, I'll put this here. I was watching an Emergency Awesome video and he called Narek Ethan Peck. I nearly had a heart attack. Not really, but I had to look it up because the actors that play both roles do look similar. And I thought it would be interesting if Ethan Peck were to play both a Vulcan and a Romulan. What is this? So, alrighty, he goes on to say, thoughts on the ep. The molecular reconstruction scene was cool tech. Rogue synth F8 was hacked by someone else. Likely the Sadvash, whatever it's called. Commodore O is likely a secret Romulan pretending to be Vulcan. What's an obvious difference between the two? Romulan ears are typically pointed straight up and nose forehead ridges, and Vulcans are more angled outward?
I don't know. I've seen different.
I don't think that's the case. I have a comment about her ears later. I didn't realize that one officer that works for Agent O is actually Peyton List. Golden glider on flash and frequency. Not really sure if I trust Narek. I feel like he's trying to protect Soji, Dodge's sister, and won't betray her to his sister. I really like, what's her name, the Irish Romulan living at Picard's chateau. She's spunky. That would be Laris. That cracks me up.
Yeah.
Oh, the Irish Romulan. Oh, that's funny. Anyway, sorry. You made me laugh. I'm intrigued by the connection between Michelle Hurd's character and Picard. I know her from Blind Spot, but weirdly, she also reminds me of Michael's mother from Discovery. I know she's not, but seems similar to me. Oh, obviously, this is the start of Picard's aromatic syndrome, or however you say it. I don't like that Admiral character at all. Admiral F-Bomb, I'll call her.
Good points. One thing I said to Todd from his feedback regarding the first point about Ethan Peck and Harry Treadaway, apparently Harry Treadaway actually auditioned for Spock, and Ethan Peck, I guess it sounds like it came down to Ethan Peck and Harry Treadaway, and they decided to put Harry Treadaway in this role. And I don't think Treadaway would work as Spock. And the little segment that I put in about our Patreon call about the teeth, that's why. Because he does not have Spock's teeth, that's for sure. So, you know, and you know, I don't mean to. I'm just saying it's noticeable. I don't know.
It's noticeable to some people because I haven't noticed it. Sorry. I mean, I must say I wasn't really staring intently at his mouth, so I'm sure I'll notice it now. Thanks a lot, guys.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
We got a couple of ratings from last couple of episodes. Nick from Arizona says for the first episode, he gave it 9 out of 10 wines with a white milkshake. And for episode 2, 9.5 failed pleas for help after being exploded.
Wow. Ouch. Oh my gosh. Okay, then I had a long protracted conversation with Ken from Chicago on Twitter, and I guess we're gonna read it here. I will play the role of myself. Brian, you be Ken.
All right, that works. So he starts off, he says, if I tweeted you on Tuesday, you aren't true Trek fans, not only dishonorable, you're a criminal. Thursday, Brian, Ruthie, I know we've had our differences, but I'd like to borrow some of your podcasting equipment for an indeterminate time. You'd rightly be furious. Frowny face, frowny face, frowny face, thumbs up face. I know it's not a face. While Brian's blistering, scathing remarks would be emotionally hurtful and justified. Crying face, crying face, crying face. It's the sheer feeling of
Frelling.
Frelling. I don't know that word.
Frelling is a swear word from Farscape.
Oh, okay. It's the sheer.
It's like frack, but it's frel.
Got it. It's that's probably something the Admiral should learn. It's the sheer frelling terror of the hashtag Wrath of Ruthie that would leave me to leaving life as I knew it behind and go in hiding in witness protection. Shocking face at Lynn from Chicago. Rolling and squinting, laughing face, rolling, squinting, laughing face.
Okay, and so I replied, do please elaborate. I'm not quite sure to what you are referring.
Then he says the Admiral's colorful rejection of Picard's request for reinstatement. A ship, a crew mere days after calling Starfleet criminals on interplanetary TV. Mad face, rocket emoji, Spock emoji, and rolling and laughing face. I think you'd be furious if someone insulted you publicly, then asked for a favor within a week's time, and you'd be rightfully enraged.
And then I responded, quite right. Thank you for that perspective. It's easy to fall into the thinking that Picard is always right.
Yeah, we're running into that a lot in this show. Ken continues, he says, the irony is that Picard tried to avoid the issue in the interview, and had the news crew kept their promise, then Dodge might have seen the interview, but Picard might have gotten more help from the Admiral without him insulting Starfleet mere days earlier.
And I said, I think this is what caused the disconnect between the interview and asking for help. He wasn't trying to insult Starfleet. He was saying how he really feels. To me, that's not an insult, but sometimes the truth hurts. Besides, he was provoked into it.
He sure was. Ken says, exactly. He had enough self-awareness to know his leaving Starfleet was a dangerous topic for him, and his emotional outburst proves he was right to want to avoid it. By the way, I also agree with both of you that I wish the episodes were longer. I really like the tale, characters, and world. Then he says, speaking of insults, I think the receptionist at Starfleet Command was not sassing Picard, but just didn't know him like use. Now, don't know General Colin Powell, though at one point he could have run for the presidency. Getting up and about is like calling an old person spry.
And then I said, perhaps, but I rather think that the interview would be something everyone at Starfleet would be talking about, but maybe he was just being a clueless youngster. Now get off my lawn.
And he says, how many young people now care about what Colin Powell thinks? I agree. The interview would be the talk of Starfleet Command, senior officers. That kid was still wet behind the ears. He has a whole quadrant of current news to distract him. Rolling in laughing face, eyeball, and eyeball.
And I said, I think if you're in Starfleet, you know about the interview. It's the trickle-down effect. Your bosses are upset, their bosses are upset, your boss's bosses are upset, etc. Means even the peons know. And then I said, I want to circle back around to young people knowing about Colin Powell because I think it's a flawed analogy. We don't really know what celebrities would be like in the 24th, but I kind of tend to think that Picard was something of a celebrity, not just a washed-up admiral. Not that Colin Powell is a washed-up general. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think he'd even be more famous than Colin Powell.
I agree.
Ken says, true, but we have a model. We have people who are internet famous on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Reddit, even podcasts. And that's just one planet. Imagine a federation of planets where anyone and everyone can make their own holographic plays, games, concerts, and holocasts.
And I didn't get to continue the conversation. I got super busy yesterday, and today I was really, really busy, and last night I was obviously watching Picard. So my response to that I didn't get to say would be that even though that's how things are today, it doesn't mean that's how they will be. I mean, remember that baseball did disappear for a while. Also, remember that they're supposed to be a more enlightened society, which is why I say that everyone would know who Picard is, because that's the kind of person who'd become a celebrity in the 24th century. At least that's what I think.
Well, saving Earth multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, what were all the things that emergency navigation hologram said?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Arbiter of the Klingon succession, savior of Earth from the Borg. I don't know, a couple other things, whatever it said.
Representative for the Q continuum.
Q continuum, yeah, exactly.
Which I was really surprised to hear the Q continuum in there. That was good.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are things that even though we didn't see in the Next Generation, I think that word got around. So, and yeah, that was a while ago, but nevertheless, I mean, people still know who Tom Cruise is.
Although he hasn't jumped on any couches in an interview in a while.
No, but he's still making movies, and in fact, he's making another Top Gun. I'm so excited. Yeah. Anyway, that's my point. I feel like I don't necessarily know that we can count on things like Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Reddit, all that stuff. I mean, we're talking about a society that's supposedly so much more enlightened. Are they going to care about that kind of stuff? We don't know.
Yeah.
So that's exactly why I say that's a flawed analogy, because I think Picard is exactly the kind of person who would be famous. And that I think that I don't necessarily know. I mean, I'm not trying to double down on whether or not that kid was sassing him. I'm just saying it kind of felt a little bit like shade.
Yeah. Some real quick additional observations from last week, things that didn't come up and probably should have. The doctor from the Stargazer, Dr. Moritz Benayoun, I think I said that right. So one of the comments said that they don't use first names, but
yeah, they were
when
formal.
But when they first got there, Picard calls him Moritz, and the doctor calls him Jean-Luc. So it just that they dropped into formality when he wanted the sign off and when, he started talking about his condition. So I noticed that the pips of the Admiral, there's kind of like a V shape that the pips fall into. So I guess the Commodore's kind of V shape where her single pip is, I guess that makes sense. It's just means that it's higher than a regular captain. So it's like the start of the Admiralty, I guess, but that's a Commodore, which is not just under an Admiral. It's like between a captain and what is it, a rear Admiral? Or is it I think it's rear Admiral. And I think there are two levels of rear Admiral, if I remember James, you saying that. One thing I wanted to mention, you were going about the 43 days. I'm predicting that 4 days from that time, there will be an assimilation, and that will be at 58:47. So watch for this. It might happen next episode or the episode after that. And I remembered after that, I'm like, what I haven't heard, and I could have said this episode or next, but whatever. I haven't heard any star dates in this show yet. Have they dropped it and have gone back to the full Gregorian calendar? Like even the Index in the first episode, she gave a time frame that was using Gregorian calendar dates, not star dates.
I don't know, but I'm kind of hope so, since those star dates were completely arbitrary and had no rhyme or reason, which I found to be very irritating.
I agree.
How can I figure out what the date is if you won't use a...
Yes. Maybe when they outlawed synths, there was like a little...
by the way, no more star dates.
Yes. There's an addendum to that law.
No, I kind of think that maybe they don't use star dates when they're not in space. Maybe.
Well, we'll find out. Maybe. Well, yeah, or maybe we won't, because
maybe it's just a Starfleet thing.
Or maybe if Rios is exactly this Starfleet kind of guy that Picard says he is, and I think he is too. Maybe he'll be giving his his logs and star dates. Who knows?
Captain's log, stardate.
Yeah. All right. So let's finally get to this episode, season 1, episode 3. The End is the Beginning, written by showrunner Michael Chabon and executive producer James Duff, who you may know from things like The Closer and Major Crimes. I know you've watched several shows of his, right?
Yeah. And by the way, Jonathan Del Arco was on both The Closer and Major Crime.
Well, there you go. That kind of makes sense then, right?
I guess.
Yeah. Directed by, and this is the 3rd episode in a row, Hannalee M. Culpepper. And the description from CBS.com, completely unaware of her special nature, Soji continues her work and captures the attention of the Borg Cube Research Project's executive director. After rehashing past events with a reluctant Raffi, Picard seeks others willing to join his search for Bruce Maddox, including pilot and former Starfleet officer Cristobal Rios, Santiago Cabrera. And I'll give a spot the 47, even though it wasn't a 47, it was a 48. So I have to say, when it comes to that, Ramda is patient. Yep. Patient 4822 stroke 2, which is weird. I heard that like stroke 2.
Stroke is, I think stroke is like another way of saying dash or something.
Or slash.
Or slash, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Ramda, they could have called her 4722 stroke 2, but no, they had to give her another digit there. So swing and a miss.
Aw, I'm sorry.
Well, you never know. There may be other 47s in there after an examination. But like you said,
like I said,
nothing obvious. So
TNG was lousy with them. Picard and Disco, not so much.
Yeah. All right. So what did you think of this episode, Ruthie? What's your rating?
I liked it well enough. I'm going to give it 9 out of 10 arbitrary ratings.
Well,
much like Stardates.
I didn't like this one as much as the first two,
No?
although I still liked it. So it gets not a bad mark, but not as good. I had a few issues. 8.5 shared narrative frameworks, which...
Wow, that practically means you hated it.
No, I certainly didn't hate it. There were some things that I really liked about it, but there were a couple things. Yeah, I know.
Anytime a rating drops below a 9, you know there's an issue.
Yes, that's my
good
thing.
Rule of thumb for Brian.
Yes. Yes, because I want to give it a 9. I really do. All right, so listener ratings, Ruthie?
All right, James the Augmented Sailor says, I'm giving The End is the Beginning 9.5 angsty teenage moral relativisms.
Brian from Hawaii, he says, I rate The End is the Beginning 8 out of 10 cool Commodore sunglasses. I believe we will be talking about those sunglasses in more detail.
I think so. All right. Daniel from the UK says 10 out of 10 Romulan Triominoes cards. Wow.
Triominoes.
Yeah, Daniel liked it.
LT from NC says, giving this one 9.7 out of 10, no stun settings.
Oh, my goodness. Fred from the Netherlands gives it 47 out of 60. You have some GD nerves. But I gather you already heard that from your buddy Clancy.
And thank you, Fred, for supplying us with our only 47. Mark from Ontario, Canada. It's the first time hearing from him this season. Of course, Mark's been prolific giving us voicemails, but...
we should say Mark from Solo Talk Media.
Yes, who does a great podcast on The Expanse called Tales from the Rocinante. So, yes. I give this episode 6.5 out of 10. What the heck? They're still smoking in the future?
That's a good point.
I wonder that myself.
Yeah, I guess vices still exist in the perfect society.
And vaping. Let's not forget vaping.
Yeah, I kind of was including that in the vice. Okay, Kim from California says 7.9 OOs.
I love that one, Kim. That's really funny.
That's funny. OOs.
Well, if you thought Mark didn't like it, you hadn't gotten to Nick from Arizona's rating yet. He gave it 4 out of 10 Skyfall panic cubes.
Oh.
Or snake leaf induced paranoias. Did not like it.
Clearly. All right, Rick from Cleveland says, I loved this episode. 9.9 out of 10 shootouts at Chateau Picard.
All right, so let's move on to some yeses.
Yes.
James, the augmented sailor, had a few. He says, EMHs, love seeing the tie-ins. Yes, even though it wasn't our EMH, beloved. Really seeing the fallibility of Picard. He left Starfleet, and in his own wounded pride, he overlooked that he was abandoning Raffi. It really grounds him and makes him more human than we've ever seen him. A lot of people may not like this because it goes against Roddenberry's vision or whatever, or that our heroes shouldn't have any imperfections. But this isn't 60s or 90s kumbaya, drum circle, everything's perfect Trek. And to me, it makes it that much more compelling. And then he says, we're off to space. And I guess I'll say it here. It's hard to see Picard like this. You know, I think both of us will agree with this. It's hard because I said in our intro episode, I said, you know, there are two characters from television that were my favorite by far, and they are Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead and Jean-Luc Picard from Next Gen. And I was thinking about this week, especially after watching this episode, and they have a lot in common. And I think that they are incredible leaders. They are not perfect, but they always seem to do the right thing, or at least they're able to come up with, you know, incredible things in the midst of sometimes impossible odds. And we're seeing that. I don't know if it's because he lost Data or that he's doesn't have all his crew together, you know, that were on the Enterprise, but it seemed like back in 2385, he just wasn't the same. And it's really hard to see this. And I kind of, it might partially be why I only gave this an 8.5, because this is really hard for me to deal with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Yeah. All right, next.
All right, next, Brian from Hawaii. The 2385 uniforms are great. I wish Starfleet hadn't changed them again by 2399, although both styles are quite nice. Seeing an EMH and then ENH was a fun nod back to Voyager and DS9. Hugh's character is intriguing, and I'm really curious to learn more about how Hugh came to his position as executive director of a reclamation project. Getting an explanation about the Romulan forehead difference was also a great line to give fans. Northerners have the ridges. I agree.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it just takes a simple little bloop like that to make it provide satisfaction. So
yeah.
I thought that was nice.
Yep. Just a little thing and goes a long way.
Yep. It's like a little dabble do ya. All right. I also want to highlight the music in this episode too. The Goldsmith score playing when Picard is on the ship is so uplifting and appropriate. Yeah. I have to 100% agree. When he beamed onto the ship and that little, whatever intro notes played, I was like, so it definitely got me in the feels a little bit there. All right, then he goes on to say, I also greatly appreciated that this episode, while still too short in length, had a proper ending instead of just stopping abruptly like the other two.
Yeah, and I think, and this goes along with some of the other comments that we get in this episode, I think you can really see that these first 2 episodes were stretched into 3. And that's why the middle episode is kind of like disconnected in some ways. And you can see the padding, I think. What I mean by that, the extra things that they added into these 2 episodes to make 3 episodes. And that hopefully going forward, the rest of the episodes are going to be longer. I don't know if they will be, but this episode was the shortest of the 3, and they've all been, people have been complaining that they're not long enough. And this one was only 43, I think it was 43:03.
Incorrect.
But
yeah,
it shows, and the cold open, for example, in this episode and the last episode, both those cold opens were not originally part of the script. They were added to help stretch it into 3 episodes, because there were certain, they realized after, shooting, that there were certain things that weren't being told, weren't being explained. So they realized that they had to add these things to, give the context. And I think it will help. And I think we needed them, but there are also some clunkiness, especially in this one, that I'll get to later. But
yeah, I don't think they should have stretched 2 into 3. It just, it showed real bad.
I think so too. I think they could have just had 2 1-hour-long episodes and we would have been fine.
And, we would have been fine, maybe a little confused, but there's nothing wrong with being confused. Honestly, I don't need to be spoon-fed everything. I'm a smart person. I can figure some stuff out.
Yep.
Or I can reserve judgment until I learn more. I don't know. I just, I think that was a misstep, honestly. I could tell that they did that. I don't really like knowing how the sausage is made, okay?
Yeah, it's like you could see the seams, and, we don't want to see the seams.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the zippers or the weird, jackets that can open up on the front or the back.
But zip from the front, from the back, yeah.
So,
yep.
All right. Fred is next. He says, Rizzo, in her cool Romulan dark leather outfit and the pointy ears, plus reminds me of the elf warrior Toriel in The Hobbit, played by Evangeline Lilly, but Rizzo is more wicked. Okay. The fact that we finally get a new EMH, including its humor in a Star Trek series, and even a clone one. That gives my a clone one, okay. That gives my Orphan Black heart a boost. Remind me a little bit of Multiplicity,
Uh-huh.
A little bit. The interaction between JL and Raffi, although the acting was sometimes not 100%, we are getting some criticism about Patrick Stewart. I know Fred's been waving that flag, but there's some more of it later on. The looks of La Serena, inside and out. And then lastly, Mark DeCote gives feedback for this podcast. I think Fred has missed you, Mark. So
yeah. All righty. LT from NC says, the cold open, we got to see Picard and Raffi in uniform, and we got to see just how his resignation happened. The writers gave us a few more tidbits about what set the stage for the show and what struck the first blow to the wedge that split Raffi and Picard. Commodore O in sunglasses. Things are about to get real when the director of Starfleet Security shows up to interview someone. Plus, just the shot of her looking all MIB in those sunglasses. It reminded me of the original Jack Ryan movies, because if Admiral Greer showed up, you knew it was going to get intense. Deborgified Hugh. It was pretty trippy how he went from being an autonomous drone to directing the reclamation zone. I have a feeling we're not quite done with him yet. I agree, based on the trailers.
Yep.
The fight in the chateau. I guess when your housekeepers are former Tal Shiar, you can expect to have a ton of disruptors stashed around the house. I'd also like to mention that apparently raising grapes for the last 15 or so years hasn't taken the edge off those old skills.
Yep.
I agree. I love the weapons stashed all over. I was like, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, there's one, there's another one.
Yep. Yep. That was pretty cool. I'll also toss in here the last scene where La Sirena went to warp. I'll admit it. I got a little misty there between the swell of the music and Picard saying, engage.
I agree.
Seconded. That music was awesome.
Rick from Cleveland is next. So many great things this week. Yes, on Vasquez rocks being used as Vasquez rocks. I agree. Actually, I agree. That was something that I was going to put in myself. So how awesome after seeing this locale used as so many alien worlds in so many instances of Trek dating back to TOS. And this time it's actually used for reals. I added that last part. Yes, for Hugh's return as the executive director of the Reclamation Project, no less. Such an interesting use of this character who always seemed to have great potential from when we first met him to when we last saw him in Descent. And to that, I remember Picard saying, I think he said something, I haven't rewatched that one yet, but Hugh's worried about the fact that they're leaving them without a leader, and Picard remarks,
I think they found one.
Yeah. A huge yes for the compelling and dynamic characters we are being given so early on. It took Discovery the better part of a season to get us invested in most of the bridge crew. Each of the characters in Picard's inner circle are new to us, and each are interesting and compelling in unique ways with backstories that will continue to reveal themselves to us. I love that. Raffi is awesome. Rios and his holograms are great. And we're even starting to dive a bit more into Girardi. And I'll just say, yes, I agree with that. And particularly, I loved Rios's characters and his holograms. It's kind of like you're getting different flavors of him. So,
yeah.
And lastly, yes, for Laris and Shaban. I love these characters. Their banter is fun, and seeing them in action during the attack at the chateau was fantastic. I hope we get more of them this season. I do too.
Me 3. I agree.
All right. So as far as our yeses, what do you have?
I like that he didn't sit in the chair. Because you can see the pause, but he isn't as presumptuous as everyone seems to be making him out to be.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps talking about hubris. And I'm like, well, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he thinks that he has more friends than he had, but I don't know. I mean, he did do all that stuff that the ENH said.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did. But I do like, it's almost like he hesitated, and he started to, and then he did that little pause, like you said, and it's kind of like, no, I'm not quite ready for this yet, I
don't think it was that. I think it was more like out of habit, he turned to sit in that chair, but then he was like, oh wait, that's not my chair. That's what I thought.
Yeah. I think you're right about that too. Yeah. So the only other thing that I had that hasn't already been said is that we're starting to see Picard getting some of his mojo back. Like, for example, when he called up Raffi, it's like, you're doing the research, aren't you? I love that. That was great. Yeah.
That was funny. She's like, no. He's like, I'm sending you what I've got. Yeah.
Because that's exactly the kind of thing we would see old Picard do. And I just love that he just knew that she couldn't put that away. She was going to look it up. And that I love that. So, despite her protestations, she's there. And, she's saying she's not going to follow him. I'm pretty sure she's going to follow him. By the end.
And then we're done. I don't think so.
When
people make a declaration like that, they mean the opposite of that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm never going out with you again after this. It's like, 10 months later, they're married.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
I'm not saying that Rafi and Picard are getting married. Don't take that out of context, listeners. I just mean that it's usually when someone he doth protest too much.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Thank you. Yes.
Did you read where I wrote that? Because I wrote that in here.
Did you?
I did.
I did not see it.
I wrote it about something else, but anyway, we'll get there.
All right.
I have to reiterate how much I really liked the music at the end, and both when he got transported onto the ship. I was like, oh.
Yeah, Jeff Russo's been hitting it out of the park with this series so far. Fantastic work he's doing.
He's doing good.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I think it's all pretty much been said.
Yeah. We got a good analysis of our yeses this week. All right, for no's. No! I just love hearing that, especially right now. I love it.
Yep.
James, the augmented sailor, he says, EMHs that aren't Robert Picardo. I mean, really? All EMHs should be Robert Picardo. Well, we did have those Andy Dick EMHs, I will just say.
Yeah, what was that in?
It was the episode with the Prometheus, the multi-vector assault mode. So, Voyager episode.
What? Oh.
I don't remember the name of it might have been Message in a Bottle or Ship in a Bottle or something like that.
Okay. I was going to say, I know that they've had other EMHs as well. Like there was an upgraded version of the EMH in one something. It must have been in an episode of Voyager because it was not in any of the movies. So they did have the Robert Picardo EMH in First Contact. That was awesome. But yes, I agree. Robert Picardo is awesome as the Doctor. But I mean, really, he's that Doctor. He can't be all EMH. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
He's become a real boy to me. So.
Anyway, that was from Message in a Bottle.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys probably know my next one before reading this because I harp on the little things. No, number one. Why can't the puppy come with? Let him learn how to act on the fly. It'll be all right. Yeah. But I'll have to say, James, where was number one during the fight scene? He didn't even bark. what kind of guard dog is number one? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if that was one of the scenes because, they had mentioned it on the Ready Room that there were a couple of scenes that they pulled out. And I wonder if there was a scene with number one, taking down a Romulan or something.
Yeah, but he didn't really do it right. He kind of was a little bit more aggressive than he should have been because dogs who know how to act, so to speak, are good at play, growling and barking and fighting, but they know when to quit. So I can see that being a problem. Like if he didn't, if he got too into it, kind of because he's maybe too young or something.
Yeah.
Then he didn't really stop when they were like, okay, stop. And he's like, wah, 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 wah. And they're like, no, seriously, stop. And, that could be a potential hazard for the actor because obviously the actor's not really a bad guy. He's just playing a part. And the dog needs to be able to understand that it's not real danger. I think that's probably maybe, I have no idea if that's really the case, but I'm speculating that could be an issue is that if the dog is not able to separate real danger from play danger.
I think, Kurtzman, when you come up with your deleted scenes, you need to show scenes with number one that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, as long as it's not someone really getting injured.
Yeah, we don't want to see that.
That would really suck.
Yeah.
And plus, that would also give pit bulls a bad rep.
Yeah. No, but it's what we said before. If number one was supposed to do something, then he took a dump on the carpet or something. We want to see that.
That would be funny. That would be funny.
Yep. All right. Next,
we have Fred from the Netherlands, who is quoting Narek. I think I'm falling in love with you. Is she really going to buy this? Maybe. I don't know. She doesn't know what we know, so it's possible.
I get where you're coming here, Fred. Because, yeah, I mean, it does seem to be a little ham-fisted to, just like he says that thing, and next thing you know, Soji's in love with him. I get what you're saying.
Maybe, but I mean, this is a classic spy tactic.
Yes.
When someone asks you a question that you don't want to answer, you change the subject by telling them how much you love them. So I don't know if Data learned that lesson, though. So
Brian from Hawaii is next, and he had something in here that I had myself, so I'm going to read this for sure. The 2385 flashback scene was weak in terms of plot. Picard's ultimatum to Starfleet is, quite frankly, lame, and is another clear example of hubris on the part of Picard. I don't like this erosion of his character. He keeps making errors in judgment that the Picard we knew really shouldn't make. Well, I guess what I had partially is the same and partially isn't the same. My take on it is that it felt too compressed. Like, in other words, we had one meeting, and then this one meeting, we get that they've banned all the synths, that they've decided to stop all their support of the relief effort, and that Picard throws an ultimatum and, says, take this or I quit, and he quits. Like, all of that happened in this one meeting that we don't get to see, So to me, like, you can tell, this is where I was talking about where there's seams in this episode. This to me, although it was a good scene in terms of drama, I like the interaction between Raffi and Picard. What I didn't like at all was that it felt tacked on. Like, okay, we need to explain this, but we can't actually show this meeting. So we're just going to have Picard talk about it. And since we can't have multiple, things about this, we're just going to throw this all in one thing. And I just don't buy it. Like, I go back to like something like the Challenger disaster, or, any of the big, plane crashes or something like that. Now you say, okay, well, this is, a potential terrorist attack or like a foe invading. Well, yes, it is, but these are synths, and synths are made of software. Like this was a software glitch, right? So to me, they would do exactly the same kind of forensic investigation when there's like an internet security breach. They go back and they track the source and track the flaw. And it's a similar kind of thing here. I would expect them to go in and try to figure out that like in the shuttle disaster, like the tiles were loose, or, whatever, or the O-ring or whatever, a similar kind of thing. They're going to go and pinpoint the fault. And yes, we're pretty sure at this point, at least I am, that this was covered up by the Romulans, that, by Commodore O and, her people. They basically covered up this whole thing. If you assume that they're behind, whoever, even if it's not them, whoever was behind this was involved in the investigation and they were able to cover it up. That's the only way I could see this happen. But at the same time, even if it were covered up, it wouldn't be covered up over a single meeting. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't buy that this all happened in this one meeting. And for that matter, the Federation pulling out the support, there would be debates, there would be sessions of the Federation Council. I would expect debate on this to go on for days. This was, or weeks even. This would not be something that was just decided right then and there. I don't buy it. And that was a part of it that really, I didn't buy it. And like with synths, what I would expect, like, let's think of like what's happened with 737s recently, the Maxes or whatever. They grounded them all, right? And then they do an investigation and they figure out what the problem is and, all of that. But they didn't just like say, oh, well, the 737 Maxes, they have to destroy them all. They take them out of service. They do an investigation, and then they come back, weeks or months later. Yes, it could be, could take less time because it's the 24th century, but still, I just don't buy that all of this would happen in one thing. It seemed way too compressed to me. So
you're making an assumption that there weren't weeks and weeks of talks prior to this.
I am, based on the dialogue. That's because Rafi didn't know about a synth ban, didn't know about the Federation pulling the support. Like this was all stuff that Picard was telling her. And, for that matter, why wasn't she in that meeting? It's odd. It's very odd. So
I don't know.
That was a big reason why I deducted was this part of it. So.
So they screwed themselves with the scene they added in.
Well, no, I think it needed to be there. I think that they could have.
Did it really though?
I don't know.
We already knew.
Well, that's true. There really wasn't anything.
All that stuff.
There really wasn't anything new that from it that we didn't already know or that we would have known just based on the dialogue that was about to happen with Rafi and Picard. So, yeah, you might be right that this wasn't even really needed. I guess the best thing out of it were the new uniforms from 2385. I like those uniforms too.
Is subject to debate.
Uh-oh, Ruthie doesn't agree.
Do not. I didn't like the uniforms. Okay, but let's move on.
Yeah.
I wrote that in somewhere else, so we can talk about it when we get there.
Continuing with Brian from Hawaii's nose, he says, I find Rafi's repeated use of JL as off-putting, but it was endearing the one time she did use Jean-Luc, so it hints at a deeper connection. It also didn't make sense to me how she knew she was fired just by receiving the message on the pad. Learning that Picard didn't even visit her once in 14 years further adds to the erosion of his character. That doesn't sound like him. When Picard does meet her in the desert, she said she wouldn't help him, and then in the very next sentence, she says she has a pilot. Turning on a dime like that wasn't believable.
And I kind of agree with this. I found the constant JL off-putting for a reason I can't quite put my finger on. I'm not really sure what it is.
I think that's something that's probably going to be explained better later.
Maybe.
It is kind of strange, and it was mentioned in the comic book, the whole JL, but it's still not completely explained there either. So
I don't even know if it can be explained, really. I don't know what it is. I just kind of was like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't like it. I was like, it kind of grated. I was like, every time she said JL, I was like, no, no.
The point that you make that I agree with you on, Brian, is the point about the fact that he didn't visit her once in 14 years.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously distraught. He's probably wasn't thinking straight, but it doesn't seem like something he would have done, especially if he had this bond that was as solid as the bonds that he had with the Enterprise crew, Riker, Troy, Data, Geordi, Crusher, etc. You would think that he would have come to her unless somehow she was like leaving him bad messages on his Facebook page.
See, I kind of feel like, I was sort of thinking this the first time I watched it. After I watched it the first time, I was sort of feeling like, it's a two-way street. He didn't visit her, but she didn't really reach out either, it seemed like.
That's true. Yeah.
So, and I kind of watched it a second time to see if I still felt that way. And I still kind of did feel that way. Like, hey, the phone works both ways. So it's not like she didn't say anything about, I tried to call you and you didn't respond to me. She just basically expected him to do all the legwork.
That's true.
That's not a fair relationship.
Yeah.
I understand she's hurting, but so was he.
And if she needed his help, you would think that she could have reached out.
Yeah.
You would think so. Yeah.
But I kind of what kind of made me sort of, I guess, ponder this a little bit was listening to Michelle Hurd on the Ready Room. But at the same time, I'm like, that's still not fair. You can't lay all your burdens on one person's door to fix you.
Yeah.
That's not fair to them or to yourself. I mean, she I understand that she's a character with issues or whatever. She's got her addictions and whatnots, but you got to be whole for yourself. You can't be whole for another person. You can't expect another person to make you whole. And I don't know. I just kind of feel like,
I was thinking about this today, and I watched that Ready Room interview, and she said something about that she had problem with, substances both after that event and before. So this was something she struggled with before she met Picard, and Picard seemed to be the one person that was holding her together. And I know she said at one point, she said, I can't do this without you, Jean-Luc. But it makes me think that maybe she was inconsolable. Maybe initially, maybe he tried, but, couldn't. But then again, he's obviously been suffering from depression. I mean, maybe some of it wasn't like completely recognized by him, although I think some of it was based on the point that he made about, not wanting to wake up or resenting waking up from the dreams.
mm-hmm.
I really wonder how much of this is early onset of Irumodic syndrome or whatever condition that he's got. I really wonder, would Jean-Luc Picard that we know and love, would he in full health stomp out like that, or throw down an ultimatum, which it probably wasn't done as calmly as it was explained in that scene. I could just imagine Picard going, "You sign this or I quit," or something like that. Or
he's done that kind of thing before, though. He's put it on the line.
Okay.
When what's her face was coming after him, that's not a Starfleet I want to be a part of. That's not the same thing. That's not saying it in so many words. Either you do this or I'm going to resign. But he basically has said, no, I'm not doing that. And this is the result of that or whatever. Basically, again, not saying in so many words, I'm going to resign, or which, ultimatums aren't necessarily a good thing. But that has been his attitude. So possibly it was the wording that wasn't really that great. But I mean, he has put it all on the line before, as far as when he stands up for his values and what he believes, which is why I believe that he would have done that, because he stands up for what he sees as right.
Yeah.
And to him, it wasn't right to just completely abandon a rescue effort that they had committed themselves to, regardless of other people hemming and hawing about it.
And I'm really curious to know what he did after, because it was something that Laris and Zhaban said, something about them being on the vineyard for 10 years, not 14. So I'm wondering if we're going to find out that he still was involved, but, on a more personal nature, or did Riker and guys, did they kind of disobey orders or something and try to save as many as they could? I don't know.
I thought we already knew that he did.
Well, we're assuming that. We're headcanoning that he did, but I'm wondering if we're going to actually see it.
I don't know if that could be headcanon, considering the fact the words that they've said, we remember what you did.
It certainly sounds like he did more after this day that we see in the cold open.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like that would have been a better...
Yes, it would have.
a better scene to show. Show me what... Because, like I said, we already knew all that other stuff. I want to know what happened in between, like you said, that 4-year time span in between when Laris and Zhaban showed up and what happened. I mean, and didn't the news crew girl say that Francie is the only name I can come up with her because that's who she was on Alias.
Richter.
Didn't she say something about I'm sorry, it's Francie.
Well, maybe it's Francie Richter.
Hilarious. Anyway, what didn't she say something about him spearheading the effort?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, obviously that's not with Starfleet because they backed out. So
it would seem
it's clearly not headcanon. It's clearly real. So I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We want it to be canon more than headcanon.
Well, they're certainly hinting at it enough. So.
Well, maybe we'll see that coming up. Continuing. Also, twice in this episode, characters mention the cost of hiring a ship for space travel. This confused me because the Federation has no money. And Brian from Hawaii, you stole my thunder. We have more to say about the Federation economy in our not goodness. 2 more points he has. Why did Soji fall asleep while talking with her quote unquote mother? I don't get it. And my response is that's because her quote unquote mother sent her commands to send her to sleep. Like, that's not her mother. Like, it's some control program or something like that. Like, obviously mother was lying. Oh yeah, she's getting a puppy. Yeah, right. Well, she's getting a puppy in heaven. You know, so obviously that's not true, but it seems to me like there were some commands in there that just sent the command to send her to sleep and got her off that train of thought. And probably when she woke up the next morning, she totally forgot about Dodge. So
I also am now convinced that her mother is some type of program.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it's internal, as in I don't think she's imagining it. I think she's actually calling someone / thing.
I agree. I think that if it was an internal thing, she wouldn't need this construct. It would, and it wouldn't glitch like this. Like, there would be no need to glitch because the program or whatever receiving it would already know what she was going to say and would be able to instantly have a response to it because that program knew what had already happened because it was witness to it. So yeah, I'm thinking that, maybe this is Maddox, maybe this is, whoever's controlling this, whatever, but there's something external. I 100% agree with you that it is external that's doing this. Last thing, he says, also, I'm not a fan of the holographic controls for the spaceship. I don't mind them at all. Like we've already seen, with other examples here of the holographic controls, it's in the future, right? So like, this does not suffer from any kind of interface issue that we might see on Discovery, for example, because this is ahead of what we saw in Next Gen. So there's no canon police here. It stands to reason that this is a thing. I mean, you may not like the look of it, and maybe that's what you meant, Brian, but in terms of continuity, I think it's fine. Because it's in the future. It's the future.
So LT from NC says he has just one. Narek and Rizzo were getting a little too Lannister there in spots. I have to agree with that.
Yeah. They do seem a little Cersei and Jamie.
I know. I was like, what's happening? What are they? What's going on?
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, is this a Romulan thing? I don't know if I like it.
Last is Rick from Cleveland. He says, one no, albeit a nitpicky one. The sunglasses on Commodore O were just plain awkward, as though too big for her face and tilted a bit. Well, to that, the thing that I noticed the most, well, I have a couple things on this, but I'll bring up one thing now. The sunglasses made her look elf-like. Like her ears really went off on an angle.
Man, you're stealing my thunder.
Damn it. So obviously you agree.
I agree. Those ears. Although I had this under I guess I put it under not good enough, but it could have been not good enough or no. I don't know.
Yeah, it looked really weird.
Oh my gosh, it looks so weird. Those ears on O seemed more like a fairyland creature's ears than a Vulcan's or even a Romulan's.
Yes, I totally
They
agree.
were sticking out way far from her head in this scene, and it looked comical.
It did.
I mean, I was like, what the I mean, most of their pointed ears are close to their head. So what was up with this like sticking out? I mean, oh my gosh. I don't know if it was the sunglasses that was making them stick out, but I mean, I wear sunglasses and they don't make my ears stick out like that. So I can't imagine having pointy ears would mean that putting sunglasses on them suddenly makes them stick out weirdly. It was just, it was wrong in all kinds of ways. I was like, no, I don't like this.
It's elfin magic.
Oh my gosh. It wasn't even elfin because most of the elves I've seen have ears that don't stick out weirdly like that. It was I can't even think of the creature that I'm thinking of right now off the top of my head, but I know that I've seen it in some
Gremlin.
Something. I don't know. I mean, like, I could only think of like Gollum or something.
Yeah.
Like his ears were sticking out weird like that. I don't know. I was like, what is happening here? Or like Baby Yoda. That's what it was.
Baby Yoda.
Her ears were like Baby Yoda. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. It was weird.
It took me right out. I was like, nope. Both times. I was like, nope.
What else? Okay, so it's now for ours. What else do you have?
I get so lost. I keep moving back and forth, and then I don't find my right place.
Well, I asked, you said K for what's with the cigar?
Yeah, what's with the cigar? What do you mean? What?
Am I reacting to something that didn't actually happen?
I have no idea, but I do not recall a cigar in this episode.
Okay, so I may be. I mean, I might have reacted to comments thinking that somebody was talking about him smoking a cigar, because we are going to see that there. We've seen that this is going to be on the bridge. Like Rios is going to smoke a cigar, but
okay, I don't think he smoked a cigar in this episode.
Okay, so
he might have, but I think the only person who was smoking this episode was what's her face.
Yeah, I could be wrong about this because I am far from an Irish accent expert, but the ENH accent sounded too much like a leprechaun. It's like, oh, be lucky charms.
Oh,
that's what it sounded like to me. It didn't sound like what I would expect like an actual Irish person to. I should say it sounded okay to me with some of what he said, but other parts of what he said just sounded too fake to me. So I thought the English accent, in contrast, sounded very accurate. So,
well, it's probably because he grew up in London.
Right.
So
exactly.
I mean, when I heard like the few words, I needed more words from him in the interview segment, but the words I heard from him, I was like, oh, what is that? Is that a British accent?
Yeah.
Because even though his last name is Santiago, he did grow up in London, amongst other
That's
cities.
His first name. Cabrera is his last name.
Whatever. One of his names is Santiago.
True.
Which is not typically an English name.
Yeah, he's Chilean, born in Venezuela or something like that. I'd have to go back and look, but I remember he had some unusual multi-country heritage. So,
well, yeah, I think he lived in Chile, but his parents were Argentinian or something, which is highly unusual because the Chileans and Argentines do not like each other, if I recall correctly, but I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, he
is Chilean, but born in Caracas, Venezuela.
Venezuela. Okay, yeah. So not Argentine. Sorry. Venezuela and Chileans, I don't think that they have any issues with each other. Someone, please let me know. But I knew someone who spent a bunch of time in Chile and told me all about the, I don't know how friendly rivalry between Chile and Argentina. So
Yeah.
The struggle is real, but I don't know about anything between Chile and Venezuela. So, but they moved to London amongst other cities. So it's possible that he got that London accent or British accent or whatever, honestly. So there you go.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll bring up is there was a little bit of something I didn't buy, and that was after the attack, which I love the attack.
Mm-hmm.
That's I'll to say I think that was probably my favorite part of this episode. Picard, Laris, and Shaban hug before even taking a look to make sure the coast is clear. You would think that they would do that and look to make sure the coast is clear before hugging and embracing and thank God you're okay. To me, that was a mistake that could have cost them all their lives. Yet, yes, of course, Agnes was there and used the disruptor thinking it could be on stun and no stun on the disruptor. But
no stun settings.
Yes. But that still could have happened in that way without that hug. Like it wasn't, I didn't have a problem with them hugging. It just, the way that it played out, it made them look incompetent for that 1 second. That could have, if Agnes had not shown up, they could have all died in that moment, you know?
Yeah, but she did, and they were using their plot device shields.
Ah, okay. Deus ex machina.
That's right. I mean, how else could she have, if they hadn't done that, then she wouldn't have been able to do that. But I don't understand what you mean that could have happened without the hug. How? How could that have happened without the hug?
What I'm saying is that there could have been a moment where Agnes could have come in at the last minute and got that last, like maybe they were all out of place or something when that last Romulan showed up and Agnes comes in and kills him. It just, with having that hug there, they were like out of place for the wrong reason, I guess, so they could have had the hug after the fact. It would have still been there. They could have, had her, come in and save them, and it just not have that kind of incompetent kind of thing at the end. That was why I say that.
Yeah, but if they weren't distracted, then she wouldn't have gotten that shot off.
Okay. Well, I'm saying that it probably could have played out in a similar way if they had not hugged, but they would have to change it somewhat. So I think we're both right. You're right in that it wouldn't have worked the way it was written. I'm saying it could have been written a slightly different way that would have worked. Anyway.
I'm just saying they were using their plot device shields.
Yes.
Which allowed them to hug.
Yeah, their plot device hug. Anyway.
Well, okay, here's my thing about that whole Agnes showing up thing with I literally wrote this down. Where did Dr. Girardi get that Romulan disruptor from?
One of them dropped it.
Drop it outside?
Outside, yeah. It was a stray.
As far as I can see, all the action took place inside the chateau.
They brought extra.
No one. Yeah, I'm going to stash this here just in case.
Yep.
And she found the stash place. I mean, that to me was what was not credible. I was like, how? I mean, because the guy he was in the doorway when she shot him. So she was clearly well outside.
Yeah.
So where'd she get this Romulan disruptor from? That was my question. Because, again, one of them, like, drop it and run away or something? I mean, I don't know. I thought, well, that's kind of not really.
And then there is the other possibility, which I believe gets mentioned, that we won't bring up right at this moment. But let's move on to our not good enough.
Okay.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
All right. James, the augmented sailor, says, ENHs, I think we're going a little overkill with the emergency holograms here. I mean, I understand the need for the medical, but navigation, the computer could do that. It's like the ENH is there just to feed Rios's angsty teenage moral relativism.
I don't know. I tend to think that we may get more, we'll get an EEH and an ENH and an ESH and because he seems to be a loner to me, so I wouldn't be surprised if
entire crew could be made up of emergency holograms.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All right. He goes on to explain ranks in the Navy. Commodore O is Chief of Starfleet Security. Just to clarify, Commodore, as a Navy rank, is between Captain and Rear Admiral lower half. There are actually 4 Admiral ranks. Rear Admiral lower half, 1 star. Rear Admiral upper half, 2 stars. Vice Admiral, 3 stars. Admiral, 4 stars. At one time, there was a 5-star Fleet Admiral, but that title was abandoned in 1945. It seems a bit low to me to have a Commodore be overall in charge of security for the entire fleet. I feel like this should at least be a Rear Admiral upper half.
I would agree with that. It seemed a lower rank than you would think for Starfleet security. Like, I could see maybe like Starfleet headquarters security being at that role, but the entire Starfleet security, like, we know that there's an admiral in charge of Starfleet intelligence, which to me, intelligence would fall under security, wouldn't it? I don't know. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't.
Not necessarily, but it would be at least on the same level, security, intelligence.
Yeah, you would think so. So that I also kind of wonder. I wonder if maybe they were trying to like dumb it down for viewers that don't understand the Admiralty, right? So
maybe they just thought Commodore sounded cool.
Because this, like James mentions, a 5-star Fleet Admiral. Well, it seems like Clancy was a 5-star. Like, she had 5 pips. So that would, and I noticed in the flashback, Picard had 4 pips. So he was a full admiral. So, and you know, that basically means he went up the chain, you know, from captain to admiral. Either they automatically promoted him to 4-star admiral, which seems to be, I don't think that would be true, or he, after Nemesis, was promoted and moved on up to the various ranks. But anyway, so she was a 5-star admiral. He was a 4-star admiral. Maybe Clancy was a 5-star admiral back 14 years ago. I don't know. Or maybe level.
They were both 4-star admirals.
That's what I'm thinking it was. But yeah, James, I agree with you on this. It does seem like she should be like a rear admiral to me. So at least, if not a vice. So I agree with you. But whatever. I don't think it really matters, but from a technical thing, I think you're 100% correct.
Yep.
All right. Brian from Y is next. He says, I agree with Fred that Stewart's acting just isn't very good in this series so far. I gave Stewart a pass on the first episode because it was so great seeing him again. By the second installment, he seemed to have some of his mojo back, but his acting was still quite unnatural. In the third episode, his acting has not improved at all. I found it distracting and embarrassing for him. I'm sorry to say it, but I don't think he's just playing a 92-year-old man. He really is old and seems to have sadly lost the touch. I sincerely hope subsequent episodes change my mind. I disagree with you, and I've already expressed this. I think he's playing the part. I think he's supposed to not quite seem as sure of himself as he was. He shouldn't feel like Jean-Luc Picard that we know and we remember. In fact, if we didn't know that Picard so much, I don't think that we would see this as much, but it's a stark contrast. And like I was saying, I think that maybe he was suffering, even in the past, from early onset of Irumodic syndrome. You know, his temper flaring up and him like just not quite being himself. I don't know. I would need something more specific to counteract what you're saying, to say more. But I really think that this is like, you have to tear Picard down to build him back. And I think that these first 3 episodes have a torn down Picard. And the idea is to show him how far he's fallen so that when he comes back, that is going to be that much more apparent. But like, I don't know, that's what I'm seeing to me in terms of like, so you've got this captain or now admiral who, like I say, he doesn't have a support system. He doesn't have like, I think Data was a huge positive for him. And yes, because of, the friendship, but technically Data was unmatched. Like he was kind of like Picard's ace in the hole. Like he always had an advantage over anyone because he had Data, who had unique talents, second to none. And I think that having lost that advantage and also losing his main crew, like moving on to other assignments, I think it kind of, he wasn't all what he used to be. And I wonder really if he had been on the Enterprise when this all happened in 2385, if he was admiral but commanding the Enterprise and he had, all his support crew, may he had talked a different way into dealing with that situation. That's what I'm saying. His support wasn't there. His support hasn't been there. And he's just left to himself. And maybe the Picard character left to his own isn't the Picard that we knew. But of course he's not the Picard that we knew because he didn't have all these great officers around him anymore. He just had Rafi, and maybe she just wasn't enough. I don't know. That's my take on it. I think we need to, all I'm trying to tell you, Brian and Fred and anyone else that's having the same point, just reserve judgment. Just don't vote that card yet. Wait until the election is upon us. that makes no sense. Wait until the season's upon us, and then if we see that, then yeah. I guess I'm gonna just say the next one too because it's right in tie with this. So Fred, I mentioned it already, from the Netherlands, said again, Sir Patrick's and even Michelle Hurd's acting in the opening scene still a little stiff and not emotional enough after they had unexpectedly accepted Picard's resignation. I didn't really see any issues with Michelle Hurd there, and I already said what I said about the other thing. So
yeah, I didn't either. I don't know.
All right.
Okay, LT from NC says, I had to look up the name of Rios's old ship on Memory Alpha because I could not figure out what they were saying. That's USS Ibn Majid. Is that right?
Yeah, I think.
And it looks like NCC-1031 wasn't the only ship that ended up doing a shredder dive in the Starfleet archives. I don't know what they could have done to fix it, and I rewound that section enough times that the long-suffering Mrs. LT finally asked me what I was doing. What is he talking about, a shredder dive in the Starfleet archives?
It's just that both the Discovery and the Ibn Majid was wiped from the records.
So to speak.
And this is a good point as any to bring up the point that I want to bring up. When Rios is talking about his captain and seeing the brains and the blood splatter on the bulkhead, it reminded me of what we saw on the Glen, and the body's all contorted and distorted. And then we see the next episode with Commander Landry and the tardigrade. And it makes me think, okay, so we've got another ship that has been struck from the records. Could the Ibn Majid, could it have been another attempt in the 24th century to build a spore drive?
What?
A displacement activated spore hub drive. And, because they didn't have the research, they didn't have, the things that Stamets had learned, the tardigrade DNA, all of that, it just ended up in an untimely failure, and it ends up the same way. I'm not saying for sure that the Ibn Majid was a Spore Hub drive ship, but I'm thinking like something like that, maybe transwarp drive or quantum slipstream drive or some wackadoodle drive. It just sounded very, very familiar there. So, what do you think?
Yeah, could be. I don't know.
I mean, we don't know enough information, but it just seems eerily like if it was a Spore Hub drive, it would be a nice little like, haha, discovery. Here's how it fits in the canon, even though it doesn't fit in the canon because it's been struck from the record. This is how. Here we go. So that's why I think it might be.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Could be. All right. LT goes on to say about that fight at the chateau. You'd think that if the Romulan hit squad was so worried about Picard, they'd have come calling a little sooner rather than waiting until he had time to finish nosing around and get his team together. And I think it's pretty clear they weren't concerned about Picard until after O visited with Agnes. At least that's how it seems to me.
Yeah, I think that that's probably true. Although I am just a little bit worried about Agnes herself. Like, could she be a plant?
I don't know.
I hope not.
I hope not as well.
I looked up after last week. I looked up what the meaning of Agnes was, and it's pure. It means pure and holy. So I want to think that Agnes is a good person. She seems to be. I don't want her to be something other than that. So
yeah, I think that's a red herring. I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a red herring. I think we're supposed to like have our doubts right now, but
right
till later.
Which they facilitated by giving her that Romulan disruptor. Weirdly.
Yeah, and us not seeing the conversation that she had with O.
Right.
So.
All right. So LT goes on to say, so Soji calls home and asks Mom about Daj. So she knows, but Daj seemingly didn't know about Soji. Was this just the writer's way of not tipping their hand or just a dropped ball in continuity?
Well, this one, LT, I think is not quite right here. Daj knew about Soji because Laris found the call logs between them. We see that last episode, Maps and Legends. So they were definitely communicating with each other.
Yeah. But
the thing that didn't happen is that Soji was never mentioned about, when he talked to Daj. Daj only mentioned her parents. She didn't mention that she had a twin sister, much less.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. One final group of not good enoughs from Rick from Cleveland says, one not good enough with Raffi and Picard. Raffi had evidence that a high-ranking Starfleet official was involved in a cover-up of the Mars attack. The Picard I know could not have dismissed this, not 14 years ago, not now, even with what happened.
I can't disagree with that.
I can't either. He wonders, how could they possibly have done this, but I think it's pretty clear, like he already knows that they have some deep, dark secret. So perhaps in this deep, dark secret, the, Zhat Vash decide that it is more important for them to like wipe out the synths than it is to save the Romulans. Or, I don't know, maybe it's like one of those like awful cult things where it's like these Romulans are sacrificing themselves for the good, or who knows.
I don't know.
Another not good enough with the creepy Romulan siblings. I'm not sure if that's a Game of Thrones-ish incest vibe between them or what, but it's a little off-putting. That's a little creepy. Yeah.
I agree. It's creepy. I did not know what was happening. So there you go. Somebody else said that too. So you're not alone.
Yeah.
We're all getting that Lannister vibe, and it's creepy.
All right. So we noticed O's ears. What I want to bring up is the sunglasses. Why would a Vulcan need sunglasses? Don't Vulcans have inner eyelids? So do Romulans have the Vulcan inner eyelid? If not, that's proof that she's Vulcan. Not Vulcan, but Romulan. She's a false Vulcan.
And I have to pop that bubble you're writing real hard.
Oh, like this?
Yes, because this seems like something that would directly give her away. So
Yes.
why would she do that?
I don't know.
Seems more like an affectation rather than a
fashion statement.
I need these sunglasses because I don't have that inner eyelid. And oh crap, that's going to give me away. Everyone's going to know I'm really not a Vulcan. I mean, come on.
Well, there is another option as well. Maybe she needs sunglasses because maybe she is Vulcan, but maybe she's from the mirror universe.
No!
Oh my gosh.
That's what I say. I do not want her to be from the mirror universe.
I don't think that's the case.
I don't
she's
think so.
She's
either.
Romulan.
Yeah. Yeah, but I am curious whether the Romulans have the inner eyelids, whether or not that was,
You mean whether or not the Vulcan? Oh yeah, Romulan.
No, we know
Sorry.
the Vulcans do.
Sorry,
It's the
sorry,
Romulans.
I misheard.
Yeah. So it was kind of mentioned before. It just, I don't know. Picard neglecting Rafi like that. It's just like you brought up a good point about it being a two-way street. It just doesn't seem like something he would do. And this is reminding me, a couple things in this one remind me of the Picard hater bingo.
Oh man.
Picard would never do that because that's something that's playing up with this. But I want to take a couple minutes. I think both of us want to talk about this. Federation economics, the whole money thing. I am confused about this, but at the same time, this is a topic of discussion that really needs to be defined better, because there have been multiple examples, both in the 23rd and 24th century, where they say the Federation, there's no need for money, or we don't even have money. But it seems like there is a class distinction between Rafi and Picard here. That's pretty clear to me. There's this whole thing about payment for the ship. That doesn't seem to jive with the fact that, there's no money. There clearly has to be money. So I'm really wondering what the deal is here. And the one thing I'm thinking of is that maybe a couple things could have happened. Maybe this is something new that has happened within, say, the time of Nemesis and the time of this period of time. Maybe we got the start of a new economy in the Federation again. Maybe this is like the influence of Rom and the Ferengi alliance, because we see in the first episode, we see a Ferengi building in Boston. So I'm wondering if maybe there's been a modified Federation economy where there is like some kind of like payment for things and that. Maybe there's something called like a guaranteed minimum income or a basic income system. They're slightly different. Basically, I think the difference between a guaranteed minimum income and a basic income is that to be a basic income system, you just have to prove that you're a Federation citizen. And if you're a Federation citizen, regardless of your means, you could get a certain amount. And I think there's like the definition of a guaranteed minimum income. There's some kind of means test. That's what I read about on the web. But it's basically like there is the ability for people to like actually make money in that case. But maybe on top of that, though, you could make more. So I'm wondering if this is what's going on. So I like that it's brought up, but we better get a whole bunch more and finally like explain what the heck's going on with the Federation economy, because it is really hard for us to fathom the idea that there's no money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think sometimes when they say no money, I think what they mean is because they never really say exactly that we don't have money. They sort of hint around to our society isn't based on the drive for financial gain.
There is one episode in Deep Space Nine with Nog and Jake talking, and Jake said something like, "We don't have money." So he even said, "We don't have money," but maybe this is like figuratively.
Well, I was going to say maybe Jake doesn't really understand because he is young in that episode, I believe, if I recall correctly.
He's pretty young.
So maybe he doesn't understand the whole we don't have money thing, because they clearly do, because we see Jadzia gambling for gold press latinum.
Yep.
And I mean, there are plenty of other instances where they've had to spread a little cash around. And obviously gold press latinum is the currency of the star systems or whatever.
Yeah.
Universe, solar system, galaxy, quadrant, whatever you want to call it. Seems to be the current standard for that. So I kind of tend to think that maybe you're right with the whole some kind of guaranteed minimum or basic or whatever kind of income thing, where they don't really, like I said, the drive for financial gain isn't the driving factor of their society. And that is outright said in that one episode where they find those people, where Data rescues those people.
And I wonder if, like, maybe that very episode, that was his name, Frank Offenhouse, I think.
The guy who's constantly trying to check his accounts.
Yeah. Ralph Offenhouse, that's his name. Yeah, he's continuing to check his accounts. I could totally see him being like the minister of finance or something, and set up a whole, or what is the equivalent in the chairman of the World Bank or something, chairman of the Federation Bank. I could totally see him setting up a whole new 24th century economy. But I like,
just because one person wants it doesn't mean everybody else is gonna go, oh, okay.
Rom wants it. It's all Rom's fault.
Oh my gosh. Because Rom wants what Quark has. Anyway, oh gosh. Like Rom.
Mookie.
Yeah. Well, I've also wondered about this though. I've never understood the whole money thing outside, or the whole no money thing or whatever you call it inside the Federation, because they do still surely do business with planets or people who are not in the Federation. So how do they conduct business with these people if they don't have any money? So they must have some kind of money.
That's why I'm hoping that this topic gets addressed in more detail in this show. Like, for example, even here, like on this Borg reclamation site or whatever it's called, Romulan reclamation site, there clearly is like representatives from various civilizations are going to this Borg artifact, and there's obviously some kind of payment going on with the Romulans, because otherwise, why are they doing it, so to speak? So there has to be something.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I tend to think that it's like I said, they don't view money the same way that we view money, but clearly they have it. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
How else would Riker have been able to gamble in Quarks?
Right.
Because apparently he won a lot of money.
He did.
But Quark didn't pay. He gave him credits, which of course Riker happily gave back.
Right.
Because again, he didn't care about money.
Right. So had a couple other things here. Destroyer of what? Both the Romulan that's laid out on Picard's floor before he dies, and Ramda, I think that's how you say her name, both call Soji the Destroyer. So it's not the Borg that she's the destroyer of, right? Ramda is a Romulan, reformed Borg, or whatever you would call it. So what is it she destroys? Is she the one that destroys the Romulan sun they haven't called it Hobus yet, but is she the reason for the Hobus supernova or something? Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm just wanting more. I guess we'll get it. And my last thing is we hear Soji mention about like a shared mythical framework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to blow people's minds. We've seen a shared mythical framework, and maybe this is why Soji can think of this, because if she has the essence of Data, Data, of course, was exposed to Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Darmok and Jalad on the ocean.
Yes. Temba, his arms wide. Shaka, the walls fell. Anyway, the children of Tama, the Temerians, this is an example of a shared mythical framework. So maybe that essence of Data is like giving her this idea that maybe she can connect with these Romulans and give them, like, I don't know, Hugh when the subnode went down or something. 7 of 9 when tertiary manifold went down or so. I don't know. So just making up stuff. But
oh gosh.
But that's what I'm thinking, is that that's what she's trying to do, because maybe that is her example of something that works. Because otherwise it's like, where did she get that from? How does she know that? I don't know. All right. So normally we don't play this, but we felt like there were a couple of things Ruthie had to bring up that were more appropriate, not good enough, but what we play in Discovery, which is this.
Hello, this is Captain Tilly. What the hell? What the hell? Hold your horses.
And because we miss you,
Tilly. I missed you. So how did Raffi go from to hell with them to then being upset that she was about to get fired?
Yeah. Unless there was
seriously gave me whiplash.
Yeah. It was either like kind of projecting, oh, here's step 1. Well, I know what happens in step 102. But, maybe there was something in the message that she got from the CNC that told her.
Yeah, but she's like, to hell with them being Starfleet. And then it's like, oh crap, I'm going to get fired. That's not a to hell with them attitude.
Or maybe they bugged Picard's pad. Then when she said to hell with them, and then when she said to hell with them,
fired. Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of weird. I was like, what? Like, out of one breath, you're like, to hell with them anyway. And then in the next breath, you're like, oh no, the people I just said to hell with them are telling me I don't have a job. It's like, but you just said to hell with them. So I don't know. She just, someone else said it too. She's very hot and cold this episode. She's very, go away, come back.
Yeah. Come here or go away. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know. I just I didn't really understand that, I guess. I had one more. If they didn't know their race, then how could Soji possibly know their language?
Yeah, that is, well, unless she had Data's whatever. I mean, how did she know that detail about the Romulan scout ship?
I don't know, but that's something that could easily have been learned somehow. But these people are people that there is no record of their race.
Yeah.
So they're Borg that have come from ostensibly like the Delta Quadrant, where Voyager was trapped for so long. There were all kinds of races and species out there that the Federation had absolutely no knowledge of, except for from Voyager. Well, Voyager certainly didn't encounter every single species in the Delta Quadrant. So if these people are the nameless, as in we have no idea what their race is, then how could she possibly know their language?
These, what you won't hear in the actual episode, listeners, is a large pregnant pause. So I'll spare you of that. But I don't know. I don't really have an answer to this.
Okay,
yeah, that's I don't know. But hopefully we'll find out before the end of the season. because there are many, many questions that need to be answered here.
But see, why is that not raising a red flag to anyone else? I'm like, I can understand if this is something that is to be explained later because she really is an android. But shouldn't other people notice and wonder about this too? Rather than just being, I'm impressed. Like, well, you shouldn't be. You should be like, how the hell did you do that if we don't know what race they are?
Yeah.
So that kind of felt way off to me.
I would agree.
I can understand if it's a plot thing that we'll figure out later. But again, characters also should be wondering.
All right, let's move on because we've got our feedback section and open hailing frequencies. All right. First is voicemail from Jeff from North Carolina.
Hello, Star Trek fans. This is Jeff X-Force11 leaving my thoughts about the most recent episode of Picard, The End is the Beginning, or should we say Shootout at Chateau Picard. I absolutely love that shootout scene with them pulling disruptors and blasters from here, there, and everywhere. That was amazing. What I really enjoy about this series is the fact that I just get sucked in. The time seems to go by quickly, and yet I savor it as well. It is so well written, so well shot. You just want to know more about each of the characters when they appear. We get just enough backstory to make things intriguing. This new ship looks amazing. I love the hints of the Next Generation score as they begin their mission. Oh, it was just a great episode, and I cannot wait to see what's next. All right, X-Force11 is out.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Good to hear from you again. So, yeah, I would say that I would agree with you as far as that shootout is very much, like I said, I think it was a highlight of the episode for me. And most importantly, Zhaban and Laris did not die because I was so worried that one of them was going to die.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't really think of anything more to highlight there. Can you?
Nope. Great comments, Jeff.
Yep.
Agreed about the music.
Definitely agree about the music. But yeah, anyway, Jeff, I agree. Short and succinct. Appreciate your feedback. All right. So let's move on to our good friend, Fred from the Netherlands.
Hello, Brian and Ruthie, and all listeners to Talk Through Media. This is Fred from the Netherlands with some feedback for Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 3. First off, I want to come back to last week. I had seen the episode last week just once and thought it was a blabber episode, so talking. And I was not the only one. I gave the episode a 6 or a 7 at that moment, knowing that it could be higher if I rewatched. Well, of course I did rewatch because I did the screenshots for the blog post, so made over 150 screenshots, of which Brian used about 15 for the blog post, and that gave me another impression about the episode. As many people said, a lot of exposition, and I give it now a 7 or a 7.5. There were some discussions that people found it strange that Dash never mentioned Soji, and there was a big question, did she knew she had a sister? Well, I'm not daily talking about my brother either. I don't hate him. I see him 1-2 times a year. He lives far away, just as Dash and Soji. So I don't think it's so strange not to mention your sister. And there was a discussion about these transport gates at Starfleet headquarters, whether they were security gates or transport gates. I think they're just transport gates, because there is a big square there where a lot of people walk around. Or are these gates then everywhere around that area? I think it's just transport. And perhaps transport, for instance, to a landing site for spacecrafts, like your airport transportation to the city. Okay, about this episode, let's start with Commander O. Did she walk out of the Blues Brothers or Men in Black? Really ridiculous with these sunglasses. And did I see a change in her ears? Did they get pointier, more Romulan instead of Vulcan? What I liked a lot was the ears getting pointier in Narissa Rizzo. I actually really wonder if that is her Romulan name. But she looks quite stunning in her very nice outfit. If we see what Siobhan and Laris can do, I just don't understand why they don't go with Picard, why they stay on the vineyard. Are these drapes really so important? Isn't protecting this old guy not more important? Well, they really showed they can fight, but perhaps they will join in a later phase. Okay, that was all for this time. Greets, Fred from the Netherlands.
Fred, thank you again for your voicemail. I know you love to hear the showcase. And why wouldn't you? Makes me feel good every time I play it. Anyway, so I think repeated watchings do help, especially for content like this that's pretty dense. It's got a lot of things going on. I think sometimes going back and watching over just helps. And yeah, I do it normally as when I'm podcasting on stuff, but I mean, occasionally when I'm watching something that needs it, it helps too. Like I think I did it a little bit on a few of the Mandalorian episodes that I didn't care for on the first watch. You know, I went back and watched it again. And same thing with Game of Thrones too. Although a couple of those episodes for season 8 they didn't help. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think repeated watchings can also point out flaws. So kind of depends on the episode.
It makes me wonder if the Chateau Picard winery is like the Romulan ale for the Federation. You know what I mean? Like it's so vitally important because I mean, Giorgio even had a bottle of it and that was, 100 some odd years before Picard. So
yeah,
this Picard was running the winery. So I just
clearly been around a long time. So
yes. And the funny thing is, it even exists today. So it's kind of funny that there's an actual Chateau Picard. As far as the Laris and Siobhan and helping going with him, I wonder about that. I really wonder if like it makes them vulnerable to an attack with him not being there. But then again, like why would they go? And like the only thing I could think of is if Laris and Siobhan are like investigating while Picard is gone.
Maybe.
And they find the truth and they end up dying because of it. I hope that doesn't happen. I really, really, really do hope. But
yeah, but I mean, he can't have them be on the ship because then he can't get his other Romulan person on the ship.
Oh, we're talking Legolas.
Yeah. Romulan Legolas. Also known as Brunette Legolas. Yeah. But yeah, I don't understand why they didn't come along either. I mean, it does seem kind of weird, but again,
are they the only ones that can run the winery?
Maybe. I mean, that is important as well, I don't know.
So I would agree. I just wish that we knew a little more. I really hope that this isn't going to be the end for them on this season. Like we're going to see them actually doing stuff that's going to contribute to the story beyond this.
Right.
The funny thing, I wanted to mention this. I don't have this in my notes, but I was noticing in these first 3 episodes in the credits, Orla Brady, which like if you're comparing the two, like I would think that Laris both has made more of an impact, I think, and has gotten more screen time. But in the credits, like on the end of the episode, she's like grouped with 3 other, there's like 3 names. And Jamie McShane, who's playing Siobhan, is much earlier in the credits. And I'm just wondering why that is. Like she's got a bigger role, it seems. Not a much bigger role, but like she did have that whole scene in Dodge's apartment. That didn't have a Siobhan in it at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It seems odd that she wouldn't be higher in the screen credits. I don't know. Maybe she said, I have to be in this. I don't care what you pay me. I don't know. But it's a great role. I think she's great. I think she's been a highlight of the show so far. So regardless of where she is in the screen credits, she's like right up there with my favorites. So
yeah.
Hi, this is Brian, and we have a late addition to our episode. This was something that we thought was too good not to mention this week. Fred, while he was doing screen captures for our blog post, he happened to find something that we thought was interesting enough for us to include. And then he also noticed something else, which I think the second thing is less interesting, but the first one is, I think, very interesting. Here it is.
Okay, 2 tidbits of details. Of course, I discovered these kinds of things by making my screenshots for the blog post. One is that if we look at the previously on sequence, that suddenly the F8 Android or synth has in his eyes some text. I couldn't decipher it. It's readable, but it doesn't make any sense to me. That was not there in episode 2. So why did they do this? Or is it just an editing mistake and they just took the wrong sequence? Question, of course, is did it take at first the wrong sequence or now at the second time? I have no idea. And the second funny thing is when Picard arrived on Rios's ship on this transporter platform, he has this round glowing things behind him. It's kind of spikes and they really look like coronaviruses. So very threatening and very much into the present day news.
So as far as the first thing, I would have to think that that is an editing mistake. I have gone back and looked at the credits, and it's interestingly enough, the same editor between episode 2 and 3, Steve Haugen, Haugen, is who is listed as the editor of both episodes 2 and 3. So I would guess that it was probably an editing mistake or something that they changed in one. Maybe they decided not to show the code that went through. I don't know. But anyway, it definitely was different. The eyes did not have that look. It had like a blue tinge, a blue light that seemed to go around the irises of the eye, but there was definitely no code showing up. So I went, after you mentioned this to me, I went back and looked, and sure enough, it does look different between the 2 episodes. As far as the coronavirus, Fred, I think that's just you as a geneticist looking at it that way. It's obviously nothing that they would have set up ahead of time because, the coronavirus wasn't a thing when they were writing this episode. So anyway, it's just kind of it's a coincidence. That's all. But that's it. So back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. That's it for our voicemails. Let's go to our written feedback. First is James, the Augmented Sailor. Underway, shift colors. A little Navy jargon there for everybody. It means we've left port. That's the perfect way to kick off my thoughts on this episode. I really wish they'd have combined these first 3 episodes into the premiere. While each individual episode has its flaws, the sum of these parts has been epic. Together, it's really grabbed my attention, and I know I'm not alone in that feeling. Romulans being the only reclaimed that are insane after reclamation, it sounds like they found out a secret that was so horrific it drove them insane while within the collective. And the only way they could function after assimilation is through the hive mind. What is this twin synth and one being the destroyer mythos. I'm really intrigued by this. Is it prophecy? Is it just a myth? Is it quote unquote news? I can't wait to see this plot point develop and how it ties in with the Data Soong Maddox legacy. I enjoy seeing more background on Raffi and her relationship with JL and why it's so strained, which is a far cry from what we see in the comic and the flashback this episode. A couple of other real quick observations. Rios definitely seems to be a Han Solo archetype, and his ship, I don't think they named it this episode. Any of my fellow Expanse watchers get a Rocinante vibe? The first almost third of this show has been absolutely amazing. Now that the table's set and we're off to the meat and potatoes, I hope it can sustain that excitement level. I think I heard Frakes directed episodes 4 and 5, so that is definitely a good sign. Next week can't come soon enough for me. Amen. And
Agreed.
Yes, you are correct. Jonathan Frakes is directing the next 2 episodes.
And yes, I did get a Rocinante vibe.
I would be curious, Mark, from Solo Talk, if you think that this ship has a Rocinante vibe as well. I think it does. It doesn't, I guess, the interior, right? Not so much the exterior. I don't know.
It's not really the interior or the exterior. It's kind of the
vibe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't look anything like it. Obviously, it's nothing like it because, I mean, they're completely different ships. Rocinante does not have a warp drive, for one thing.
Right.
They've got the flip and burn, not warp.
Flip and burn, yeah.
Which I will point out that if you pay close attention to the first season, when they say, because I've heard this mentioned several times when people talk about the real way that you would travel through space is by when you stop, you can't stop any other way but then to go reverse, which is the flip and burn thing. But if you pay attention in the first episode or the first season of Next Generation, they say reverse engines full stop. They don't say it that way in subsequent seasons, but they understand the laws of physics. They understand that the way that you stop is to reverse your engines. They don't flip, but they do reverse engines. So
yeah, I would agree with that.
But yeah, so it's implied every other season afterwards when they say full stop that they're reversing engines in order to full stop. So there
you go.
Star Trek is accurate too, sort of. I hope that means that Jonathan Frakes is going to be in the 4th and 5th episodes, or at least one of them.
Well, he's going to be in there somewhere, but I don't know if it's going to be one of the next 2.
I don't know either, but at least he's going to be in there soon, hopefully. I can't wait for Jerry Ryan to show up. I really want her to be a recurring character soon. Anyway.
All right, next.
Brian from Hawaii says, this episode was really difficult for me to rate. I had to watch it twice, as well as The Ready Room, before I could give it a fair assessment. My initial reaction was fairly negative, and I gave it a low rating, mainly because of the quality of Stewart's acting. I also wasn't very impressed with the Raffi character's portrayal. However, upon a second watch and seeing the interview with Hurd on The Ready Room, I've decided to increase my rating to be less critical than I was at first. Looking on the bright side, Picard now has a crew and can start his mission. Fingers crossed it improves from here on out. Engage. Etc. Why do the civilians on this show wear clothes fairly similar to those of today? In all other installments of Star Trek, the civilians wore odd-looking spandex onesies that, while sometimes strange, serve to illustrate how different things were in the future. I know fashions can change fast, so it's not a big deal, but it does bother me a little that for the most part, the world of Picard looks like our world, just with some new technologies added.
Nah. I, for one, do not miss in the least any of the very weird 70s throwbacks, like especially the first couple of seasons of Next Gen. There were some funky things they would wear.
Yeah.
I just do not want to see that again. Like
men in skirts.
Well, no, there are people. There are people that wear the scants. That's what they call it. That uniform. It's called a scant. And I'm not gonna disrespect the scant lovers out there, but you know, like some of the crazy things that like even we've seen Picard wear on Captain's Holiday, for example, or remember the episode that got me to start writing in the first place, Angel One, when Riker had that like god awful sex object.
You mean his Tinder photo?
Yes. Oh yes, his Tinder photo. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I think though I don't mind men in skirts. I mean, after all, kilts are sexy, but there's a difference between a skirt and micro mini skirt.
Right.
With go-go boots. Oh, that drove me crazy, especially. I mean, I didn't like it when Troy wore it. I didn't like it when any of the women wore it. I did not like it when the men were wearing it either. I was like, I don't understand this uniform. It's not functional. Ask any woman who's ever worn a micro mini skirt. It's not functional. When you sit down, you sit on nothing. Anyway, which is why in the original series, they all had the bloomers on underneath.
Yeah.
Because again, not functional. Anyway, I, for one, am happy also that they don't have those crazy unitard things happening anymore. I was not a fan of that. I thought, oh, finally. I just don't feel like that's a fashion that we would move towards.
Yeah.
Honestly. It's not, again, no pockets. Come on now.
Exactly.
It's not functional. You have to completely disrobe if you want to go to the bathroom if you're a woman.
Yeah.
Probably if you're a man too. I didn't see any flies in there. So
I always thought that maybe they just like beam that portion of their they just beam it away.
Beam out the urine. Oh my gosh.
Okay. I wasn't thinking about beaming out the urine. But you could kind of, you know, I could see that being a thing. It would certainly make bathrooms more hygienic.
Oh my gosh.
But what I was thinking is that, you know, there would be like maybe part of the outfit, part of the uniform is actually just like holographic.
Oh, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah,
oh
think
my
so.
gosh.
It's like, oh, there's a malfunction in the
oh god.
That would be funny.
Suddenly you're flashing everyone. It's like, ah!
Yep. Surprise.
Yeah, no kidding. But
yep.
Gosh. Yeah,
anyway, my point is there are canon violations and then there are taste violations, and what we saw back then to me was a taste violation.
Yes.
We just need to bury that and just never speak of those kind of costumes again. Just let the past be the past, as Lyra said.
Like, only those with perfect figures exist in the 24th century because we're all wearing spandex onesies.
Yes.
Ugh.
We don't need that. We just don't. Just, it's one thing to say, oh, they look too modern. Like I say, I just don't. What they had could have just as easily been on Logan's Run or Battlestar Galactica, or, you know, I'm talking 70s Battlestar Galactica, not.
Me too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Buck Rogers.
Yes. I feel like, honestly, and at the time it bothered me as well. So I'm not just saying this after, you know, how many years of hindsight. It took me out of it at the time. I thought, this is weird. I mean, yeah, fashions continuously progress and all that kind of stuff and change, but that's one thing that you can't really ever predict. I mean, that's just something you might be able to predict technology, but fashion is anybody's guess. I mean, we're talking about how many years in the future? 400 and something years in the future. Well, what did clothes look like 400 years ago?
Frilly and
yeah.
Yes, let's all dress like fops.
Yeah, and have giant cod pieces. I mean, come on. There are things that you just can't. I mean, and certain fashion elements were due to a lack of technology. Certain fashion elements were due to a lack of hygiene.
Powdered wigs.
Yeah,
Simple.
and
Yep.
those big, huge lace collars were perfumed because they didn't bathe.
Right.
So, I mean, you got to look at this as how much more technologically advanced do we think that fashion is going to get? I mean, we've already got zippers, snaps, and buckles, and Velcro, and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, they didn't have zippers 400 years ago. So, what kind of newfangled fashion technology is going to exist, not holograms, that you could possibly think of? I mean, I can't. So that's not to say that no one could. I'm just saying I don't know that that's something that you can really predict, because fashion is dictated by, in some instances, necessity, and in some instances, just whatever weird thing people decide is cool.
Yeah. My take on that, is that the uniform, they go to the restroom, they beam the uniform off, they do their business, and then they beam the uniform back on in a clean state. So there you go. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, that brings to mind a whole other issue. Oh, the transporters are down. Crap! Senior officers to the bridge. Oh, healthcare.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the replicators are offline. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't know. I didn't really care for the new uniforms either. I think I said that last week, though. I didn't like how they went away from the jacket, undershirt, pant combo, and they went back to what looked like a unitard onesie thing. And I was like, ah.
I didn't mind them, but all right, let's move on here.
All right.
Todd from Ohio says, I really like the 14 years ago Starfleet uniforms with the gray stripes on the shoulders. I enjoyed the actor playing the pilot. Was he in Star Wars Rogue One?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I was intrigued by the psychic Romulan former Borg. The most interesting thing about the whole episode was that Hugh seemed to be the top in charge guy of the whole Borg cube reclamation stuff, which makes sort of sense as a former Borg and taking care of former Borg, but not so much with him working with the Romulans. Might be a kind of marriage of inconvenience of sorts.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, it seems like he's the right guy for the job. And, regardless of their methods, I think he's still doing what he can do.
Yeah.
But like the thing he brings up about, them looking at it both ways of like profiting versus like using him as a weapon, I get. So but there's probably not many opportunities elsewhere where there's like this disconnected artifact. So
yeah, he's going where the action is.
Right. Over to that fight scene at the vineyard. I was almost impressed with 90-year-old Picard trying to get in on the action for a sec, but bless his heart, when he got thrown across the room, I thought he was done. Pretty spry for a white guy. Can anyone tell me why the hologram based on the pilot's physical form happened to be British while the pilot is Hispanic, I think? I don't know what else to say, but I'm glad Raffi and Alison Pill are part of the crew. I would not be surprised at all if Lore shows up somewhere in the series. I had thought, yeah, I mean, I had thought about Lore a couple of episodes back, like when we were talking about the neuronic cloning. I almost wanted to say clothing again, but I think that it's possible. I tend to think we're going to see Data again in some capacity. I just don't know how. And I think that the holograms were kind of like showing different personalities within it is kind of weird. Why are you having holograms that are based on yourself? But I mean, maybe that makes it easy for him to dismiss them. Get out of here, me.
I don't know. The only other word I could come up with is narcissistic.
Could be. Although
but why not?
Yeah.
Base him on someone else? That would be more creepy.
Yeah.
Like that whole episode with Geordi and the
Oh, Leah
designer.
Brahms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did not like that.
Every time you touch these engines, you're touching me. I don't know if that was the exact wording. Okay, so
I don't think it was.
it probably wasn't. It's even creepier the way I said it. But
It was
that's
really
okay.
creepy the way you said it.
Oh, anyway,
my goodness. Anyway,
your
I
point-
guess, I mean, yeah, who else would you make them off of? So, sure, yeah.
I like it, and I want to see what other holograms he has. Like I was saying, will he have a Scottish engineer? And will it say things like, I can't take it anymore, Captain? Or
Given her all she's got, Captain.
yeah, or will we have, I don't know, a Vulcan science officer hologram or something? Who knows? But anyway, all right, next.
All right, Daniel from the UK says, I'm still clinging on to my what's up with Agnes hypothesis. Like, number one with a rat, after all. Why mention Picard doesn't do basic checks? Speaking of, where was number one in the fight? Ooh, someone else mentioned that. Now hoping we get a short trek next season of number one attacking Doofik the Doofus Jatvash operative who was meant to keep watch outside in a Tom and Jerry style chase cartoon. That's funny. I'm thinking Hugh is double dealing the Romulans and assisting some underground Borg with 7 of 9 in some way. I feel we've watched a 3-part cold open to a season-long 2-parter, which sounds like technobabble, but I love it. The detective adventure begins. And he has a winky face emoji in there and a Spock emoji in there.
Cool.
And yeah, I agree. I think that short trek would be funny. And I think we've rehashed we've talked about the Agnes Girardi thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a red herring.
Yeah, I do too. But yes, I would like to see a number one short trek. And I think
I
they
want to
should.
know where she got that disruptor from.
I do too. It does offer the element of doubt there because, like we said, we didn't see their conversation, and it did seem to just be there for no apparent reason. Like, it's not like we saw her pick one up or something, and it just seemed like she just showed up and had a disruptor. So I don't know. But I honestly, I don't think that she is a baddie. The only thing I could think of is that she ends up being another synth, but I don't see that either.
Mm.
I don't know. All right. Next is LT from NC. He says, holy crap. Tempered expectations aside, this is looking like it might be better than season 2 of Disco. And you guys know I loved season 2. I have questions. It seems that quite a few of the assimilated Romulans didn't manage to recover from the experience. Well, all of them, actually, not just quite a few. At least now we know that whatever happened on the backside of the Empire didn't result in a huge number of assimilations. It makes me wonder if the Romulans either died or killed themselves rather than getting caught by the Borg. Like, we did have the first hint of the Borg was actually in that very episode you mentioned earlier, the neutral zone. They're just kind of mentioned as later. I remember specifically Data mentioned that these are the same things that we saw in that episode on the outpost of the neutral zone or something. So maybe there were no Romulans assimilated there. It is peculiar, though, that there had never been any other Romulans, but it does lead to this possible theory that the Romulans, their deep, dark secret is that they created the Borg, which is possible, and we could end up getting that. There's no evidence to that at this point, but you'll see. So then we have the whole scene with Ramda, the Romulan, and her triangular tarot cards. This is leading me to think that Maddox didn't just use Data's data to make the synths. I'm thinking he may have had some bootleg Borg tech, or that there is something else going on there. I know someone speculated about Daj being a proto-Borg queen, and I'm not sure now if that may play into where the Soji story goes. I'm also curious about the one that dies or the one that lives. Could it be that Soji has some sort of psionic ability to influence people, like the old Jedi mind trick? This just makes me wonder. I gotta say that it's going to be another long week waiting for the episode to drop. Speaking of which, I noticed this week that the episode came out early. Like, it was actually 2:30 a.m. Eastern. Yes, I was up. It was actually 2:30 a.m. Eastern, and so technically not even midnight Pacific, and the episode was out. So I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I just happened to notice it was there, and I hit play, and it started playing, so I watched it. And then I went to bed. But truth be told, I took a nap so I could get up. So that's it for LT's feedback. Next.
All right. Next, we have Mark from Solo Talk Media, who says, like Fred mentioned last week, this episode was all talk, 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 and very little action other than that one fight at the chateau. And I find everything happening on the Borg cube confusing. The overall story is progressing much slower than I anticipated. We're 3 episodes in and we still don't know what the story is about, other than we have to find the girl. At least they're finally in space now. Other than JL, I'm not invested in any character enough yet to say if I really like them or not. I'm hoping for things to pick up quickly in the next couple of episodes. I was highly anticipating this series, but now, unlike Discovery, which I counted the days until the next episode, after 3 episodes, I'm finding myself saying, oh, Picard is on tonight. Maybe I'll watch it. Now, back to my TNG rewatch. Aw.
Wow.
Like I said, I think they did a disservice by making these 2 episodes into 3. I think that was a misstep. I'm
glad to know you are eagerly anticipating Discovery, it seems, when it comes back. But I'm sad to hear that it's not working for you so much. I mean, it is, but at the same time, not grabbing you as much. But, I think there was a lot of setup that had to be done. I mean, if you go back, there was a lot of setup in Discovery, for that matter. I went back and I watched the first 3 episodes before podcasting tonight, and just a little bit here, a little bit there last night and tonight. And I'm pretty firm in how I feel about the 3 episodes. I thought that first episode was stunning. It's a 10. Second episode was really good. It's not a 10. It wasn't quite as good. And this one, it wasn't quite as good for me. So, but I'm very much waiting in anticipation for the next one. All right, next. Kim from California says, I'm disappointed to not have seen 7 yet. And I'm also disappointed that no one has mentioned Lal. Have they? She existed.
Nope.
I don't think they have.
Nope.
So you'd think Picard would.
Yeah.
There was nothing super interesting revealed in the flashback. It almost felt repetitive.
Yep.
I agree with that. However, the interrogation scene with Soji was the most interesting part for me. Lots of tantalizing reveals. And finally, I'm very worried about poor, sweet, maybe, Dr. Girardi, and why they didn't show her conversation with O. I'm worried she's a plant, or maybe she has some kind of mind control worm in her brain. Oh, not the SETI eel.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick from Arizona says, Picard's instant chemistry with Rafi Musiker, established episode 102/comic, is tested by the words she's supposed to say in the questionable flashback. Picard and Agnes Girardi are about the only folks who can pull off this script. 10-1 says she can run circles around any number of Commodores or skipped security checks. The chateau defense stands out against other scenes because the guns under tables and disruptors in closet gags, entrance of Girardi, and stylized filming/fighting succeed at being fun/funny and menacing, while delivering enough visual texture and sound to make us feel as though there are real people in a real place. I agree. There are a lot of oomphs for it not to be real-ish. And then, I don't know what kind of emoji that is. Some kind of pixelated purple emoji.
Looks like a Space Invader.
Yeah, something. Something, I'm sure, from some Atari video game or something. And he goes on to say, question. Y'all described the NCC-1031 half inside the mycelial network in Discovery 205 for a blind listener. Would you consider picking one scene/visual detail each week to describe that way for folks who might not be able to see it or could just use the help visualizing? Sure, I guess.
We'll keep that in mind for next week. As far as this week, is there anything that kind of fits that?
I don't know. I guess I would want to know.
Okay, well, I think there's one thing. Commodore O's ears.
Oh my god.
If you can picture a kid from like the R Gang or something like that. I'm thinking Alfalfa, but I don't think that's the right character. But a character that has like really, really, really ears that like go very far away from their skull. Okay. That's what we
like
see.
Will Smith. But if you're blind, you've never seen Will Smith. But it's like Will Smith, but with ears that are pointy and sticking almost straight out from your head rather than like sort of.
Yeah. It's like
I don't know how to describe it. It's
like they were at a right angle almost. Yeah.
They were at least at like 75 75 degrees or something. I don't know. It was crazy. It wasn't even 45. It was like more than a 45 degree angle away from her head. And she had the black sunglasses on and her eyebrows were sticking out funny from the sunglasses. Some people like the sunglasses. Some people were, that person is me. I was kind of, about the sunglasses, but the ears sticking out from her head, like crazy out from her head. Like I said, imagine some kind of fairy tale creature.
Yep.
Instead of, like, most people's ears don't protrude from their head that far. And so I can't imagine adding points to the tips would make them suddenly stick out that way. So it was really strange.
Here's what I'll say. And I realize that I don't know how helpful this will be, but I don't know. You can tell me. We usually go into a lot of detail in the blog posts with images, and I do try to put fairly descriptive things in the images. I'll try to do something like that for at least one or two of the images. I'm not going to like promise that I will, but I will think of that. We'll try to think in those terms going forward. I mean, the other visual thing that I can bring up with this episode is we had a really long camera shot where it starts out like outside of the Borg artifact and it zooms in very slowly through all the structure and ends up inside the artifact. I think it went to like Soji and Narek, I think, or maybe Soji and Hugh, where they were.
I think it was Soji and Hugh.
Yeah, I think it was. Now I say it. You kind of see it
layers and layers and layers of
layers of just like
technology.
Infrastructure within the artifact, and lots of pipes, lots of walls, lots of just structure there. And I guess that would be one thing that was visual from the episode. Well, we'll think about that for next week. And if you have anything that you would like us to describe,
let us know.
And we'll try to incorporate that into the podcast. So, all right. Our final bit of feedback from listener is from Rick from Cleveland. He says, I am downright intrigued by Soji after seeing her interaction with the reclaimed Romulans. Borgulans or Romborg, maybe. The whole group of them are somehow attuned to what she is and seem to still have some connection, which begs the question.
But it doesn't, because that's I think what he meant to say, the question that begs to be asked.
Yes, this is a pet peeve of Ruthie's, by the way. What is she really? Yeah, there's this whole thing about she's not what she appears to be. And I don't is she an imposter? Is she posing as this relation to Data, but she really isn't? I don't know. In the first episode, Dr. Girardi said they were nowhere near having the ability to create a biological synth. Decades, I think she said. No, I think actually she said 1,000 years. How did Maddox leap decades ahead and create the Daj and Soji? Does Borg technology have something to do with it? And how is it does Jatvash and the Borgulins both refer to her in the same way the Destroyer? I'm sure we're all wondering the same thing.
Yeah.
We are.
Yep.
And I don't have any answers for you, but these are questions that we're going to continue to ask. So I don't know.
I think it has to have Borg technology because they had the technology to add live skin over,
right?
To graft the live skin onto Data. So
yeah,
I think it is.
It stands to reason that it would be Borg.
Yes. And my issue with begging the question is that is a logical fallacy, not saying, why are we not asking this question or the question that begs to be asked? Those are two different things. And it is a huge pet peeve of mine.
I know. Yeah, we got into this on a Walking Dead talk through episode from a few years back, and I still remember it.
Because one of the characters stupidly said it begs the question, and I was like, no, it doesn't.
And for about 5 or 6 episodes after that, I had to say it begs the question. Just to rub it or
just to rile me up.
Yep, just to get you going. Anyway, if folks haven't watched Will Wheaton's Ready Room this week, it is exceptional. Michelle Hurd is great on it, and there's some fun Q&A with most of the cast of the show. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. All right, couple other things just really quick. I looked up the Ibn Majid, and it appears to have been named after Ahmad Ibn Majid, who was an Arabian navigator and cartographer who became famous as the navigator who helped Vasco da Gama find his way from Africa to India. And he was also a poet. So he wrote 40 works of poetry and prose, and he is known as the Lion of the Sea.
All right.
And did you notice that there was a Romulan Rubik's Cube?
I did.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I don't know.
Did you have anything else?
Puzzle. I was wondering about this when Rizzo says to Narek not to fall in love with her. Is she really concerned about this, or is she just ribbing him? What do you think?
I wonder if he's done it in the past.
That's what I'm wondering. And that's why she's saying that to him. So she's trying to give him a hard time, but also maybe kind of a warning.
Yeah. I don't know, but
it
makes me think that he has fallen in love with whoever he's
target
studying. Yes, his target in the past. So
the only other thing I noticed was in the cold open or the scene or whatever it is called with Rafi and Picard, the flashback, she said billions of Romulans were in the blast radius. So we go from billions of Romulans in the blast radius to how many got saved? Millions? What did Francie say? Francie said something.
Well, 900, trying to save 900 million. I don't know if that's how many actually got saved.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I'm wondering, I can't remember exactly what she said, but I'm wondering if there are billions in the blast radius and how many, did she say 900 million died or 900 million were saved? Well, anyway.
I thought it was trying to say, I mean, maybe he did save 900 million and maybe that's what is the truth there is that he was able to save 900 million out of how many
billions.
So yeah. So I don't know.
I don't know either, but I thought it was interesting that we're finally getting that billions number that we're thinking that we should have. I just don't know how it all fits together yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense that a fraction of them would be saved, I guess, if you're at a reduced effort. But I'm glad that someone pointed out that there were probably billions of Romulans that were in danger. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right. So let's move on to our Shipwide announcements. We've got a little bit, not much. Just have a couple of news items, but they're pretty big ones. First is specific to Picard. And this is, we don't get any ratings for Picard except when we hear about it from Canada, because Canada's the only place where it is actually appearing on cable TV. So Bell Media, who owns Crave TV, the streamer, and the CTV Sci-Fi channel, which is the channel it's running on, reports that after 7 days of after the live, it is the #1 series debut on conventional or entertainment specialty television that's been broadcast year to date. So it's beat everything that's new in Canada. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And has become the most watched Canadian entertainment specialty broadcast of all time. Wow.
That's better than year to date. I mean, after all, it's only February.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking they meant season to date, but yeah, I mean, if it's just January,
year
February.
to date, that's January.
Well, okay. Well, no, they said this broadcast year to date. So maybe I'm thinking it's season. Okay. Well, anyway, I didn't write it. Okay.
I know. I'm just saying they need to be more clear and specific in their language.
So they said that after setting live plus same day records out of the gate, Star Trek Picard's confirmed audience grew to 1,851,500 viewers, including 7 days of playback. In total, 3 million viewers watched some or all of the first episode Remembrance, including repeat airings. And Crave, the streaming provider, it's, kind of like CBS All Access or Amazon Prime, whatever. Crave reported that Remembrance was the most streamed debut of a new series in its first week in Crave history.
Wow.
So that's pretty impressive.
That's bigger than year to date.
Yeah. So speaking of streamers, there was a report that came out, and this isn't news. This is like kind of like, sources tell us, blah, 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 blah. But since it's CNBC, it's at least credible that it's probably actually going on. But CNBC reported that Viacom CBS, who's now the merged company between Viacom and CBS, is working on combining media assets for a new streaming service that will build on CBS All Access, according to people familiar with the matter. Sources say they are considering creating a service with advertisements that will combine CBS All Access with Viacom assets, including Pluto TV, Nickelodeon, BET, MTV, Comedy Central, and Paramount Pictures. An ad-free version will also be available, and a premium version of the streaming service will include Showtime as well, which is another service that they have, with a base price being $10 a month. So, I mean, what this sounds like is they're going to make sort of like HBO Max is, or what it's supposed to be when it comes out. But it sounds like they're going to take CBS All Access and add more stuff to it. And maybe it'll be called CBS All Access. Maybe it'll be called something else. But if it's not, you have to get this plus what you have with CBS All Access. I think this will be a good thing. If it's to replace CBS All Access, that'll be really good because they'll have all the Paramount movies and all the different shows that were formerly Viacom. I think it's a good thing as long as you don't say, well, to keep getting Picard, you have to pay $15 a month. Then it's like, okay, why? But
yeah, that's what I'm concerned about, because they said the base price is going to be $9.99. Well, the base price now is $5.99.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what do you get for the base price? If the base price is commercial free and you still get the shows that we're, basically podcasting on, I say great. If it's you need to, spend more, then that's going to be a tougher sell. I'm just hoping that the idea is that they can keep the price the same and add more to it, and maybe offer certain things available for free. Like, can you imagine if Picard and Discovery were available at some tier for free, and, maybe you could watch it with ads, and, maybe you can't binge the whole season or something. Maybe you can only see the last couple of episodes or something like that. That would be phenomenal. At least for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That's it. Ruthie, why don't you tell people how they can contact us?
All righty. If you want to submit your feedback or connect with us or theories or whatever, you can go to talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, where you can submit text, audio, or pictures. I don't know. We take all kinds of stuff. You can also call us at 216-232-6146. You can send us an email by typing in picardcast@talkthroughmedia.com. You can post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. And you can also tweet us at Picardcast. Although I cannot guarantee a lengthy conversation. That was a one-time deal.
I was surprised. I went to go look and I'm like, wow, that was a lot. Did you turn a new leaf when it comes to Twitter?
No, I never tweet. I just was fascinated by the conversation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
A great way you can support us, by the way, is to share our tweets and share our Facebook stuff. Now, our Facebook group is private, so you can't share those, but we post our most important things at the Talk Through Media page, which is at facebook.com/Talk Through Media. So when you see those, share them with a friend. That will help us immensely. Yeah. If you don't already do so, subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast client that you use. If it is an app like Apple Podcasts, you can leave a rating or review. And we would like to thank Brian Shiro. I know it's him because it says it there. And Jeff Gentry, obviously, again, Gentry 11, for your 5-star reviews on the US version of Apple Podcasts. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, both of them really nice reviews, by the way. And we already talked about the Patreon, but just remember patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. We have 2 episodes of the call-in shows that are now available, and you can just, as low as $1 a month, you can have access, and we'll be recording some more going forward. The cool thing about the one that we did on Monday is we got kind of in a good conversation about the first couple of episodes. So I'm thinking, we might do that again in a couple of weeks, so we'll see. No timetable yet, but we'll figure something out. I'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, James Robbins, Lawrence Todd, Fred Petrie, Clint McCollum, Kyle McAdams, Kim Vogel, Brian Shiro, Christoph Leckleitner, and Jeff Bayako. And another way you can help support us, if you haven't subscribed to CBS All Access, or someone that you know hasn't done it yet, but is thinking about it, go to talkthroughmedia.com/CBS, and that will redirect you to sign up to CBS All Access. And by doing that, you will give us a little incentive from CBS All Access and helps pay for the podcast. Our next episode is season 1, episode 4, titled Absolute Candor. We don't know who it's written by yet, but we think that the next episode is directed by Jonathan Frakes. We don't have a description yet, but we think we're going to see Elnor in this, and maybe 7 of 9. I don't know, but definitely Elnor. Anyway, with that, I'm Brian.
And I'm Ruthie.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.